taxes. Today starts more Trump tariffs on all kinds of things we all buy, a tax on all of us. On the other hand, this weekend is Massachusetts sales tax holiday. Are you participating in the holiday, saving 6.25% before the tariffs really kick in? Or are you thinking neither is really that good for your personal bottom line? Please call or text.
And I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. Then it's our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play, with Boston University disinformation researcher Joan Donovan. We're going to talk about how mainstream media headlines failed to capture the real story and how the White House is losing control over the Epstein conspiracy theories. It's all ahead on BPR, on GBH, and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump will host the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan at the White House today. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the leaders are expected to sign a peace deal after decades of conflict.
The leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia will agree to a, quote, roadmap for peace at a White House ceremony. The agreement will include commercial plans with the United States and start talks on developing a trade corridor, which will be called the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity. White House officials say the corridor would reduce Russian, Chinese, and Iranian influence in the region. The two former Soviet republics had fought over a disputed territory of Azerbaijan since the late 1980s. 2 years ago, Azerbaijan launched an offensive in the region that caused tens of thousands of ethnic Armenians to flee. A ceasefire later that year averted a wider war while the countries continued peace talks. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
The Israeli Security Cabinet has approved a plan to take control of Gaza City, but it has stopped short of describing the takeover as an occupation. NPR's Anas Baba spoke to people in the coastal northern city. That's where nearly 1 million Palestinians are sheltering in one of the last places not yet occupied by Israeli forces. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports.
The Israeli army is issuing evacuation notices in Gaza City, but 51-year-old Ali Abu al-Hanafi, who lost his house and 2 children, says he's not leaving. I fled to the south once already, and it was full of torture, he says. It's not safe, but nowhere is safe in Gaza. He says Israel has left nothing, no trees, no buildings. What are Netanyahu's goals, he asks, referring to Israel's prime minister. Where does he want us to go? Al-Hanafi says Israel has killed children, women, the elderly, and achieved none of the goals of this war. He says people are starving and the aid distribution points in Gaza serve only looters. He calls on the U.S. and European Union to make sure food reaches the people. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News in Tel Aviv, with NPR's Anas Baba reporting in Gaza City.
A new wildfire has broken out north of Los Angeles. The Canyon Fire has already burned nearly 8 square miles and triggered evacuations. One of the people who's had to leave is Connor Vanderland.
I have been through this before where I have seen these very hills on fire in the past, and this is, I grew up here, and I remember back in 2007 when there was a whole bunch of fires around here, and there was one that came up here, and it was kind of the same story.
The biggest blaze now burning in California is the Gifford Fire. It has scorched more than 150 square miles far north of L.A. Evacuations there have been ordered in 2 counties. On Wall Street, the Dow was up 130 points. This is NPR.
Good morning from the GBH studios in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Suffolk County Sheriff Stephen Tompkins is facing federal extortion allegations. The U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts announced the charges today. Tompkins was arrested in Florida and was due to make an initial appearance in federal court. Prosecutors claim he extorted a cannabis company executive. It's not yet clear whether Tompkins has a lawyer. Stick with us. This is a developing story. Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is leading a group of Democrats in a call for a congressional hearing with the victims of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Pressley is a sexual assault survivor and a member of the powerful House Oversight Committee, which has issued a number of subpoenas connected to the Epstein case. In a letter to the committee chair, Pressley, Congressman Stephen Lynch, and 14 other Democrats on the panel say survivors need to be heard in order to ensure the committee's investigation is comprehensive and credible. Federal handling of information related to Epstein is one of few issues that's triggered backlash against the Trump administration from members of the president's own base. In sports, the Red Sox are in San Diego facing the Padres tonight. Game starts at 9:40. The Patriots host the Washington Commanders for a preseason game at 7:30. And we've been telling you all week that right before that happens, Tom Brady is going to get a statue from the team. Lots of folks excited to see what that looks like tonight. It is mostly sunny and 75 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Cigna Healthcare, a health benefits provider that advocates for better health through every stage of life. Learn more at Cigna.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I am Jim Browdy, a media maven from NBC 10 Boston. Sue O'Connell is sitting in for Margery. Hello to you. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I hope you know by now we're on our annual August vacation next week, airing best of shows, at least we think so. We are back live on August 18th. We'll start today with the economy. That is your personal economy. Tariffs just hit a high not seen since the Great Depression, thanks to Donald Trump's grand strategy, whatever that is. As of this morning, the latest round of Trump tariffs kicked in, raising prices on everything from cars to coffee. And contrary to the presidential rhetoric, it isn't China that is footing the bill. It is you. Some economists at Yale, I think it's called the Yale Budget something or other, say this could cost American households an average of $2,400 a year. That's a tax. But here in Massachusetts, maybe some slight relief, depending on your point of view. Tomorrow and Sunday, it's sales tax-free weekend, which means no 6.25% sales tax on most personal purchases. I don't think it includes cars, food, meals, that kind of thing. Lines are open at 877-301-8970. Both topics are up for discussion. Are you getting hit and worried about getting hit by the tariffs? How are you budgeting and managing your way around them as best you could? And the sales tax weekend gimmick, in my opinion, or just the kind of relief you need right now to make that purchase, you've been sitting on 877-301-8970. We do the sales tax thing every year. And let me just say this. I don't know one person, and you can call and tell me I'm wrong, as you often do here at 877-301-8970. Someone says, I don't know, I wasn't going to buy a refrigerator, but because I'm going to save 6.25%, I'm now going to buy a refrigerator that I would otherwise not have bought. 40% sale, maybe. Half off, maybe. 6.25. So my thesis on this, and again, feel free to disagree, is all that the sales tax weekend does is shift your buying behavior. If you were going to buy the refrigerator last weekend, you postpone your purchase till next weekend, tomorrow and Sunday. You don't decide to buy some huge thing that you would otherwise not buy. Do you agree or disagree?
I do agree. However, I would offer the counter is that although I will be buying an ice maker this weekend.
Oh, how nice.
Yes.
Were you buying it anyway?
I was buying it anyway.
Okay,
However, I may buy some other things that I was not going to buy
it's like
previously.
the leader thing.
It's like the loss leader thing. So although those will also be on discount, 6% discount, and maybe some retailers will add a deeper discount to that.
Yes, they might do that.
Those are probably things I wouldn't have purchased at all or not now. It's like, you're in the supermarket, Jim. That's a pennies, the supermarkets are making pennies on your purchase until you get to the checkout lane. And when you buy that pack of gum or you buy that bottle of water, that's where they make their money. So I think that's part of it. Plus, it stimulates people going out to shop, which is always good for the economy.
Did you know there is a word, economist, there's a word for people like you, actually. You know what the word is?
What?
SAP is what the word is. You're going to buy extra things you would not have otherwise bought. You said say because you're saving 6.25%.
Right. People do that. As I like to point out to my daughter Ruby when she says, look, we saved $50. I say, no, we didn't spend $50.
Ooh.
That is not the same as saving $50. Yeah, I'm a lot of fun.
Okay, so let's talk for a minute about that. I'm much more interested in the local thing because the national thing is hopeless because we don't do anything about anything. Here is Donald Trump on Wednesday talking about how much other countries are paying through the tariffs. Hope someone else is writing down the numbers. Here it is.
I think we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs.
Sure.
I won't be so specific other than to say, because we don't even know what the final number is.
No, we'll know in 2 weeks, yeah.
Made a deal, as you know, with the EU where they're paying hundreds of billions of dollars.
2 weeks.
Japan paying hundreds of billions of dollars. And numerous other countries paying hundreds of billions of dollars.
Okay, before we play his Secretary of the Treasury, let me just say, and feel free to contradict me like you just did on the other thing, Japan is not paying hundreds of billions of dollars. Is that correct?
Correct.
The EU is not paying hundreds of billions of dollars.
That is correct.
Other countries are not paying hundreds of billions of dollars. His Secretary of the Treasury, when cross-examined a little bit, I think it was yesterday on Morning Joe, admitted that somebody else is paying for the tariffs. That would be us. Here's the host, and here's the Secretary of the Treasury.
Who writes the check to the Treasury?
Well, the check is written to the person who receives it at the dock in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. The check is written by the person who receives it at the dock. So the tariff is paid in this country. Okay, but the check is written by the importer, right, at the dock.
Yeah, and then the importer can pass it on or not.
He can't even get the words out of his mouth. It's such a scam.
Because I know that business people love to write checks to the government and then not pass it on to the consumer. They like to make donations to the government and make it cheap for the consumer, right?
Yeah, I did some math last night. Trump was saying in the Oval Office, we're going to get hundreds of billions from other countries, which we are not. Hundreds of billions from other countries. We're going to pay down the debt, which he just increased by the deficit by 3.whatever trillion, and did the math. The Yale budget, whatever it's called, that I mentioned a minute ago, says the 130 million households in America are going to pay $2,400 on average in additional taxes, because that's who's going to end up paying this thing. I mean, the importer may not pass along everything, but they're going to pass along a lot of it. Let me just do the math. $350 billion paid by us, allegedly, to pay down the deficit. I don't think that's going to happen. Not by these foreign companies that Trump is pretending a total and complete 100% scam. And by the way, I know what some of you are going to say, and you're free to call and say this. Yeah, but the other goal here is that all of these companies are going to switch their manufacturing to the United States. Maybe some will. That's not happening tomorrow. What is happening tomorrow is your taxes are going up $2,400 a year.
Right, and the manufacturing transfer will take at least 10 to 15 years.
If it happens at all.
And if it happens at all. And there will be disruptions in supply chain. And I know our listeners and our viewers and our YouTube viewers know this, but tariffs are not universal. A tariff is not universally good or universally bad. It's a tool. It is a tax.
It is a tool.
We use it in many ways. If we are growing corn in America and we want to make sure that the American corn is prioritized by the consumer over another country's corn, then we might tariff the imported corn to drive you to buy the American corn. And if we want to punish someone like India for using Russian oil reserves, we might put a tariff on Indian goods in order to punish them. Those are the only two reasons to use tariffs.
Where are we growing bananas in the United States, by the way?
Probably the only place, I think Hawaii. Hawaii,
thank you. 877-301-8897.
So enjoy your 2 bananas from Hawaii.
You can comment on either thing you want, whether or not you're worried about the tax increase through the tariffs. We know you're not, because you're not worried about anything Donald Trump does. And have you fallen prey to Sue's approach to shopping in Massachusetts? By the way, you can go across the border to New Hampshire, shove a refrigerator in your
but then what happens,
trunk,
Jim? Then I'm paying tolls, and I got to stop at the state liquor store, and then I have to go to I got to buy lunch, and then by then it's like $500 in, so there's no savings there.
Okay, let's go to Lisa in the car. You were first on BPR with Sue O'Connell and me, Jim Browdy. Hi. Hello.
Hey there. Good morning.
And to you.
So one thing that I haven't heard people talk about is just the value of the dollar. Because we just had a trip abroad.
Yep.
And everything that we paid for in December and January was about a 1-to-1 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to June when we were there, if we paid $100, it actually cost us $122. So everything is just going up. If you do have, relatives abroad or you're traveling, everything's going to cost more.
Yeah.
So what's your bottom line? What's your takeaway there, Lisa?
My takeaway is that Trump is really bad for our economy, and I think everybody's feeling it.
Everybody's feeling it, and luckily one person, that'd be you, is complaining about it. Lisa, thank you very much for the call. Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If Joe Biden proposed a $2,400 tax increase on every family in America, is it not safe to say that a significant part of the population would be literally or figuratively marching in the streets?
Well, let's not go down this road again, Jim. No, they wouldn't, because everybody who got that big check from Donald Trump that he signed and put on the outside of his envelope during COVID really thought that was a savings for all of us and not something taken away from others. So, I can't even go down that road.
Okay, let's
By
not
the
go
way,
down
Fox had a big story yesterday. Joe Biden had 2 ice creams last week. They while the world was burning, Fox was reporting on Joe Biden visiting 2 ice cream parlors.
They know he's not president, right?
I don't think so. I think that they're really into that.
Okay, let's go to another. Is this the second Lisa in a row?
I think it is.
We're going to aim for 3. If there's another Lisa listening,
Lisa,
you would call 877-301-8970 rapidly. We'd really appreciate it. Hi, Lisa in Wellesley. Welcome.
Hi. Good to talk to you.
You too.
So I ordered a swimsuit, paid for it, ordered it online, paid for it, received it, and about 2 weeks later received a bill from FedEx for the tariffs.
Really?
Yeah. Did you order it from like an independent? You don't need to tell us what the name of the company is, but how did you order it, Lisa? Do you know what kind of retailer you ordered it from?
Ordered it directly from the retailer. Yeah. The retailer is Triangle, and paid for the shipping, paid for the swimsuit, and then received this random invoice in the mail from FedEx. I almost threw it away because I thought it was some junk mail, but I opened it up, and it's the tariff charge for the swimsuit.
Huh. Where'd the swimsuit come from again?
The company is Triangle.
Where is it?
I believe the swimsuit came from China, but the company is a U.S. company.
Well, can I make a suggestion based on what Trump had to say? Why don't you just send the bill for the tariff to China and see if they'll pay it? And if they don't pay it,
they'll pay it. Yep.
Then they'll. Lisa, thank you. 2 Lisas with 2 excellent phone calls. Thank you very much.
So there's a system of drop shipping. Are you aware about what drop shipping is, Jim?
I am not at all.
So a lot of people are running drop shipping business. So they don't have actual companies. They don't have inventory. So if you want to buy a bathing suit from my retailer, my Front Sue's bathing suit store, I actually order it from the manufacturer in China.
Oh, I do
and
know.
The manufacturer sends it directly to you, and then I make a profit for being the middleman on it. And we've heard some stories of, since these pop-up stores aren't really real stores, the person receiving the item is considered the importer and is receiving invoices on the tariff. So this is working out well so far.
Can you explain to me again? I know you don't want to talk about if Joe Biden did this, so I won't bring that up. $2,400 is roughly $50 a week, which is a lot of money. And the reason people are not screaming it, I assume, is the same reason they're not screaming about Medicaid cuts, because they're not happening until 2020, late 2026. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that people have fully become aware of what is happening in the economy right now. And it's really complicated for us to pay attention to, and this is our jobs.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to keep reminding people of the things that are happening. And if they get upset about it, I mean, hopefully they'll get upset at the people who have manufactured this crisis. A reminder, I get how terrible I am at this. When people complained about the economy under Joe Biden, didn't necessarily listen to them. I just told them that our economy was better than every other developing country in the world post-COVID. And people would say to me, but I don't live in Germany.
Well, I think that's
I don't live in London.
But I sympathize with that argument.
Yep.
I do.
And so now here we are, and we're about to take what was the best economy, and we're trashing it, and it's going to be a lot of pain over the next 3 years.
So I think the solution to the pain is just to buy a refrigerator that you weren't going to buy otherwise and save $11 on it, don't you think?
Yes. Jamie has some questions for me about my ice cube maker that I'm making, whether it makes clear ice cubes like the ones you like,
Oh,
Jim,
I love.
very
What's
much.
the name of that guy? What's the name of that company? The guy is barely frozen.
Yes.
Is this? We had him on the show. Oh, clearly. Thank you. Sorry. He is a retired lawyer who actually had the audacity after he was on a show to send me the brief he filed at the SJC on some case, and I had to pretend like I cared about it. If you're listening, I loved it. Brief is excellent, one of the finest briefs I've ever seen. But this genius in his retirement has created totally clear ice cubes, which are beautiful.
They're beautiful.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. And he
all
freezes
kinds of
them
different
one at a time.
shapes.
Yes,
They're
yes.
Totally
My
beautiful.
daughter is an ice cube aficionado, and her birthday's coming up, and she's tired of using our crappy ice cube trays because I will not buy a refrigerator with filtered water or ice cubes in it because you're always repairing it.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
This is the
weekend to buy a refrigerator because you can save like $1.50.
I've been talked into buying a refrigerator.
Jennifer in Cambridge, you would be next on BPR with Sue and Jim. That Jim is the me part. Hi. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to sing a little song that they used to sing before a program called The Marketplace in Canada.
Go ahead.
By Self and John Comners.
Yeah.
And that addresses the issue of spending money, to save money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes, oh, yes, we are the people running in the race, buying up the bargains in the old marketplace. Another sale on something, we'll buy it while it's hot and spend a lot of money. Spending money we ain't got. I'm sorry, save a lot of money.
That was excellent.
Spending money we ain't got.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Nobody's applauding
I'm
except
applauding.
for Sue. Well, when you're forced to applaud, it really is not that useful. But thank you anyway for doing that. That was beautiful. We love that. Go ahead.
Go. I'm done.
That's it. All right, Jennifer. Great job.
You can sing on our show anytime.
Sing yourself out. That's great.
Jennifer,
yes.
it is true.
All right.
Can you explain, by the way, you haven't, even though you said you were an exception to what I said was the rule, explain to me the mindset. Forget the state eliminating the sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
If I sent you a coupon from a private firm and said, let's double it, you can save 12% on this mattress. Would you go buy the mattress?
If I didn't need a mattress?
Yes.
No.
Okay. If I said 18% on the mattress? No. So, but you're telling me you're going to buy things that you wouldn't otherwise buy for 6%
Yeah, but
saving.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy something. So it's not necessarily the benefit for me. I will buy something that will get suggested to me that I may need, may not need, that is relatively inexpensive, but will be a high profit margin for the retailer. So it's not necessarily I'm buying something equal to the ice maker. I might buy, I don't know, something for the kitchen that I didn't think I needed. So that's how it works, Jim. Benjamin Franklin invented this way to convince people to buy things through the levels of agreement, which I'll tell you about on vacation. I'll call you and we'll
Do you know
have a
what
little
Benjamin
Zoom.
Franklin invented? I learned from the Ken Burns documentary. That's probably his most important discovery for men, even though no one ever talks about it. The flexible catheter. Did you know that?
Yes, I know he did that.
Up until that,
yes.
it was just a straight
Just
line.
straight
Oh,
in.
my God.
Yes, and
Vicky
the bifocals. Don't forget the bifocals.
I know that. Vicky in New Bedford said, we bought a mattress during tax-free weekend. The savings paid for the new sheets.
See?
I understand. That's not the point.
But when did she buy the sheets, though? Did she buy the sheets when she got the mattress?
Vicky, text back if you want to, or don't.
Don't.
We are huge in Hancock, New Hampshire, for obvious reasons. And David is calling from Hancock. Hi there, David.
Hey, Jim.
Hi. Hi.
While I agree with everything you're saying about the tariffs, I think it's important that our side, at least, always have all our details correct.
Go ahead. Add a few details,
in
please.
This particular instance,
Yep.
there will be manufacturers abroad, like LG, for instance, who will swallow some of the cost
That's
of the
fair.
tariff
That's fair.
in order to maintain their market share
You're right.
here.
You're right.
So while we will all still be taxed, they won't be. And, oh, by the way, next Saturday, a week from this Saturday, is Hancock Old Home Day, and I know everyone in Hancock would like to see you at the parade.
What is it called? Old Home Day? Is it Old Home Day? Is that what it's called? Actually, I knew about it. I am unable to attend, but I'm sending Sue.
I'll be there.
She will be there. What is Old Home Day? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Actually, even better.
I'm more fun.
Every year the town celebrates its founding in August, and kids come home to see their parents. People who've moved away come home.
That's nice.
There's a great group called the Synchro Sisters, which is a group of local women who do synchronized swimming in the pond.
I love synchronized swimming.
There's the Honey Run, which is a 5K run in the morning, and everybody gets a tiny little jar of local honey.
Wow.
And there's a parade.
Is Cy part of the synchronized swimmers or no?
Cy is not part of the synchronized swimmers, but sometimes she walks in the parade, depending. I'm hoping she's going to bring her giant snapping turtle.
It's called
Fire Chief.
Fire Chief. They released Fire Chief, but she sent us a photograph of her holding Fire Chief, a 150-pound snapping turtle, in a hug, in the water up there. It was unbelievable. David, say hi to everybody in Hancock. It's a great town, and everybody we've met from there is wonderful, actually. David, thank you so much for the call. You know what's really upsetting to me in a moment of seriousness? So far, I'm reading all the texts, listening to the calls. Not one person really cares about this. I mean, despite what you say, let's put it this way. I don't want to call it a scam.
It is a scam.
This scam by the State House to pretend they're doing something for us. And nobody cares about, or at least not evincing concern about this tariff scam.
Right.
It's not just that it's a tax increase. It's that Donald Trump stands up, as we played before, and pretends all these foreign companies are going to be shoving billions by the hundreds in our treasury when it's we who are going to be shoving billions in our treasury because he's raising our cost of living.
Right. And also on top of that is this. You can agree or disagree that we should have more manufacturing in the United States. You can agree or disagree that we should be, supporting our getting people jobs here and doing things. But those days are pretty much gone, the way manufacturing used to work. And in fact, even if you catch a lobster in Maine, you are sending it to Canada to actually have it prepared and then back to the United States. And those are those enact tariffs, that back and forth. So, I mean, I think we just need to understand what this burden is going to be on us, the consumers, and the money that goes into the coffers that might bring down the debt, not going to help us. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking about tariffs and the sales tax-free weekend. We're going to get back to your calls and texts, so stay with us. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. He's Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on GPH and NEPM, live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Good news in Ghana, where a new drug to treat babies with malaria has just been approved, but U.S. funding to help manage the spread of the disease has been cut.
The U.S. is shooting itself in the foot in terms of global health security and research innovation.
The state of malaria treatment and prevention, next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
You're listening to that well-oiled machine, BPR.
It's almost like vacation is around the corner. I feel The entropy. It's the vacation entropy happening.
It's amazing we can even get on the air. I mean, frankly, it is. But we are sort of on the air. The sort of media maven Sue O'Connell from NBC, whatever. Boston thing, is sitting in for Margery. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Our annual vacation week for the whole team is next week, so we'll have best
it's already started for you, Jim. I don't know.
We'll have best of things, and we're back live on August 18th. So we're talking about a few things, if you're just tuning in. We're talking about how tariffs went up in the last day or so, and according to the Yale budget, whatever, it's going to mean a $2,400 increase in taxes for every American family, things like clothes, coffee, etc. But on the other hand, according to some, like Sue, there is Massachusetts has a 2-day pause, meaning getting rid of the sales tax on most things up to $2,500. Not everything, no meals, no cars, etc. And the third thing we want to talk about, which may engender a little more excitement than either of those, is the Old Home Parade in Hancock, New Hampshire. If you want to talk about that, we can do that too at 877-301-8970 is the number. Let me tell you something. If the Democrats do not have the ability to use this tariff thing, because unlike Medicaid cuts and SNAP cuts, most of which are after the midterm elections, it is happening now. The cost, as that woman with the bathing suit said, already she's paying a tariff. If they can't use that, they should dissolve and let somebody else form a resistance.
And the other thing too, Jim, which is, as a business owner, I can tell you, we talked about this yesterday, I still print newspapers at Bay Windows and South End News. My paper comes from Canada. So our supplier, our distributor, our printer has to alert us to what the prices are, and he doesn't know what the prices are going to be, so we can't plan ahead. So every small business in America that has to get something from outside of the country cannot plan, and that's going to be supply chain.
So how do you deal with that, by the way, in all seriousness?
We can't plan. I know of an embroiderer who can't plan how much he's going to need because he's on a small margin business. I mean, this is going to be very difficult for business owners of all sizes all across the country. It's going to impact supply chain. It's going to impact how they can deliver things to you. It's not just about price. Let's go to Jay in the truck. Jay, what's on your mind? Welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Welcome, Jay.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
This tariff really is a tax, and it's very similar to what they have in Europe. It's a VAT. A value-added tax. And that is what I think the Democratic Party and the American public should refer to it as, a value-added tax, VAT. Not a tariff, a tax.
Well, by the way, no one knows what a value-added tax is. It should just be called a tax because it is a tax. It's a tax on stuff you buy here. So I think you were totally right. It shouldn't even be called a tariff. Excellent point. Jay, thanks for adding that to the conversation. And text, I think it's funny you think about saving 6.25% on mass sales tax is no big deal, but you're super hyped up about tariff issues. And the reason, and if I may, is the tariff taxes are going to cost the average family, as I've said 4 times, $2,400. And the reality is people aren't going to be spending enough money, even if they are happy about the savings, to make it even comparable. So I think it's totally appropriate to say one's no big deal and one's a huge deal. Is that?
Yeah, no, I think this, sure, 6.25 is a savings, but, we all have a lot of family members and friends who are aggressive couponers or savings people. I mean, I have a friend who says, I'm not getting out of bed till it's 25% off the ticket.
Everybody takes that position,
so
or should.
It's if you're buying a big ticket item like to the max of a refrigerator or an ice maker, you're saving some.
How much is that ice maker going to cost?
It could cost anywhere between $300 and $500.
So you're going to save $18.
Right.
Okay, that's great. She's been planning for months. Her kid wanted the ice maker 3 months ago, but she decided I'd rather save $4 and wait until mid-August.
Oh, gosh.
Karen in Northampton, welcome to the show. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
We're excellent, thank you. What's going on?
So I just wanted to say that this whole tariff situation is cutting out the idea of bringing manufacturing back, but everybody has stopped talking about all the middle class individuals have lost their jobs during this RIF. My family has been dramatically affected, so there is no money to buy anything. We planted gardens this year with the anticipation of losing our government jobs. it's just so bad.
Karen, I'm embarrassed to say how right you are. It's sort of, we move on to the next shiny object that comes out of Trump's rather deranged approach, and we forget tens and tens of thousands of people who were serving this country and its government were let go because Donald Trump was in love with Elon Musk for a few.
And surprisingly.
Exactly. So I'm sorry, and I apologize for not factoring that in, and I promise you that going forward we'll try to be more responsible. Karen, thanks for the call and best of luck in the future.
Karen, good luck. Jim, to your point about paying attention, one of my TikToks that has been doing really well is just basically about the economy. It's one of the best performing TikToks I have, which is not an environment where things like that do well. And I think, to Karen's point, a lot of people who, primarily just run their houses and don't pay a lot of attention are now feeling this, and they're writing things like, I'm planting a garden, I'm buying used clothes, I'm being more frugal. So that we're definitely getting a reaction there. So it's definitely something people are feeling now and planning for.
We should get, Jamie, the Yale, my apologies, I just don't know, the Yale budget, whatever the thing is that did this analysis. Be interested to talk to them. Maybe people will then start believing that this pain is not only right around the corner, but actually is being visited on people right away. Sue, by the way, next time she's on, we'll talk about, she'll bring the receipt, how much she saved on the ice maker and how that's changed the life of her and her daughter.
Changed my life dramatically.
It's beautiful.
All right. Happily, that's all the time we have for this segment. But coming up after a quick break, we're going to talk to BU researcher Joan Donovan. It's our Friday media analysis segment, Press Play. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Margery Egan. He's Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the influence of AI in films gives new meaning to a director's cut, as in the director is cut out. We look at the controversy over the release of a beloved Bollywood film with a new AI-generated ending. Plus, South Park gets co-opted by the Department of Homeland Security to recruit ICE agents. And it's been 10 years since the musical Hamilton took over Broadway. That's on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, presenting As You Like It, this summer's free Shakespeare on the Boston Common. Shakespeare's lush romantic comedy celebrating the joys and follies of human nature, July 23rd through August 10th. comshakes.org. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, NBC 10, Boston. Sue O'Connell's in for Margery. We're live from the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We've mentioned about 1,000 times, we're on our annual August vacation next week, the whole team. So no library shows, no live shows, we'll have best ofs. We're back live on August 18th. However, I just heard Jared's voice on that promo. I should mention, Culture Show is live every day next week. They're doing regular shows. And Friday, they are back live, as they are today, here at the library. So we're on tape. Great shows, I think. Culture Show will be live all week long. Once again, time for our Friday media analysis segment, Press Play. With us via Zoom, we're joined by Joan Donovan. Joan, of course, is the founder of the Critical Internet Studies Institute and BU Assistant Professor of Journalism and Emerging Media Studies, the author of the 2023 book, Meme Wars, The Untold Story of the Online Battles Upending Democracy in America, and perhaps most importantly, at least to us, she is co-creator of the Beaver emoji. Hello there, Joan. How are you?
Wonderful to be here. Sorry I couldn't be in person today.
We're sorry to miss you.
Hi, Joan. Good to see you.
Sue, I have to tell you, your TikTok is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
God.
Look at that. See?
Yeah,
I didn't
it
even
showed up.
Go ahead, Joan.
Yeah, say more nice things about me.
I saw it on my For You page, and I was just astounded, but it keeps coming back.
That's what it means, Jim, when I'm a media news influencer. That's
now
what it
I
means.
understand it for the first time.
Thanks, Joan.
You're
I appreciate
influencing
it.
right here. It's the face of influence.
Thank you. So let's talk about AI, which I think we'll be talking about a lot for the rest of our lives here. On the heels of a study that was released, we're not going to get too much into it today, of researchers who showed that there basically are no guardrails on the chat bots, chat programs that people are using, that you can basically make them do anything you want to do if you ask it enough times and in enough creative ways. And on the flip side, we're also seeing people who were respected journalists like Jim Acosta from CNN, who has been, I'm using finger quotes here, interviewing a deceased Parkland victim, Joaquin Oliver, who died more than 7 years ago, and he's calling it an interview. Let's listen to a quick clip of that and get your response on the other side.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin.
So, Joan, you are an expert in mis and disinformation. What was your reaction to this?
I mean, I think it's horrifying. As a empathic person who, we should let the dead rest. And it's also, somewhat of a beta test or a social experiment that's being run on the rest of society. As a researcher, I'm immediately drawn to the flaws in the voice. Nobody takes a breath. There's no or ah or mistaken thoughtfulness and thinking. And those are the kinds of human interruptions that we have in our speech patterns that you don't see exhibited in the digitized versions of AI humans. And this idea that somehow we've recovered their consciousness, if we've recovered their likeness, and is really alarming to me, just as someone who really values the fact that I am who I am because of what I look like and what I sound like and my own thinking and actions. And it simply makes me think that eventually we'll be licensing out digital copies of ourselves for different reasons. And I just don't like what this all implies for dignity after death.
Well, how about dignity while in life? I mean, the thing that scares me is, and I agree with every word you said, is here there was an acknowledgement, obviously, as there had to be, that Joaquin Oliver had been killed 7 years ago, as Suze said. The natural extension of this is, quote, interviews being done of people who are not that person. Again, this is a different situation. We did a little thing on our show a few weeks ago when my voice had been used by some Chinese TV people do those cop shows. And I was speechless, even though I intellectually knew all this could happen. So it seems to me it's ready for that sort of abuse too. And since most of us are not researchers like you, Joan, I didn't pick up on any of those signals that made it clear to you and would make it clear to people like you that it was AI. If I saw that and it was a living person, I would think it was the real deal.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Years ago, I wrote a paper with Rutgers researcher Britt Paris about this very thing. It's online called Deep Fakes and Cheap Fakes, if you look it up. And our argument in that paper is precisely that it's, there will be novel and playful uses of this AI, the same kind of technology that would allow you to quickly send off a birthday wish to your grandma, could be one use of this very same kind of AI technology. When it's used in evidentiary settings, places in which people are trying to make sense of truth, I think that's a different political context and a very dangerous one. I had also heard that this was made this avatar was made in order to testify on behalf of the young man. And I just don't think that this is an appropriate way in which we should introduce technology into our truth-telling institutions, particularly journalism or the courts. This is where truth matters the most. And I do think that Jim Acosta, in some ways, this strikes me as a bit of stunting.
Totally.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Doing. He knows it's quasi-ethical in terms of more mainstream news, but I guess, Substack is a different plaything.
Yes. Just to get it out of my system, because this is so aggravating. It's doubly aggravated me because I was a great admirer of him before he left CNN. I thought he was a really talented, tough reporter. Here's another clip from the same interview. It's one thing, as horrible as it is, to be discussing gun violence and what to do about it, since Joaquin Oliver was a victim of gun violence. Still totally unacceptable. Listen to the beginning of this interview that Acosta does, as you might do in a normal interview, sort of casual things till you lead into the heavy stuff. Listen to the beginning of Acosta's interview of a young man who died 7 years before.
What's your favorite sport?
I love basketball. It's such a fun way to connect with friends and show off some skills. Plus, there's nothing like the thrill of a good game. How about you? Do you have a favorite basketball player?
Oh, yeah, I definitely like LeBron James. He's amazing.
LeBron is incredible. His skills on the court and his leadership off it are truly inspiring. He's made such a huge impact in the game and beyond.
It's disgusting. In any case, we're talking to Joan Donovan. That is Jim Acosta, quote, interviewing Joaquin Oliver.
All right, Joan, let's talk about headlines. As many know, I'm a newspaper person. I still have newspapers. I love it when someone accuses me on TikTok or doing something with a catchy line that's going to get people's attention, that you're just looking for clickbait, you're just trying to get eyes, which is exactly what headlines are supposed to do. They're supposed to invite you into reading the story, or invite you into watching whatever it is, or invite you to listen to the program. But lately, in this administration, some of the headlines of even some of our most respected news media outlets seem to be veering into your territory of being worthy of being evaluated for mis and disinformation. For example, this is a chestnut that Jim and the staff have talked before. The New York Times talked about a Trump commencement speech at West Point, calling it "Trump gives commencement address at West Point, stressing a new era," while the Independent publication says Trump gives rambling speech about trophy wives, golf, and the great late Al Capone in a politically charged West Point address.
Which is exactly what he did.
Right,
by the way.
and both are true. One is more true, I would think. What's your take on, and what advice would you give editors, because usually the person who writes a story doesn't do the headline. What should they be doing here, and what's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I should say, headlines are really now part of the marketing department. They're about being sticky and leaving you with somewhat of a question. Maybe they traffic in some rage bait. And so I do agree with you that the headline writing has become its own sort of form of art. But I do caution people, if you are a headline writer, only truth in the headline. Be as truthful as possible, but also it doesn't serve anyone to, some people call it sane wash, events like the West Point address by Trump. It doesn't help us to make it, report simply the facts in a headline. And, the fact of the matter is, a headline that would say, Trump gives speech is true. But it doesn't necessarily help the audience. And that, I think, is where the headline writers need to be more engaged. What is it the audience is seeking from your publication? What is the actual content of the article that you're putting out? And then what is the tone, that you are trying to strike that will bring in and assure that your audience trusts you to report the news? And so I do think that part of this has a lot to do with just the commercialization of the press in general. And what are you selling when you post on social media is literally that single sentence of the headline. That's the thing that's going to determine if someone clicks or not.
I would add, I also think that part of it is, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you just had the newspaper. So you couldn't judge which headlines were actually generating people to read stories, right? We just said if we're successful as a publication, therefore we're generally doing most things right, or driving people to our content. Now you can actually measure exactly how each story is doing based on the headline that's pushed out there. And to your point, Joan, that makes marketing, headlines more marketing than news, I think.
Mm-hmm. You know, can I just add one thought to this? Margaret Sullivan, was the who wrote about this in her Substack, who I think is just spectacular. If you want to read something about sort of daily press stuff, she does really good stuff. She was an ombudsperson, been at the Times, Washington Post, etc. Most of the analysis of this has been sort of sloppiness and lack of thoroughness. But in this era, after we lived through the ABC disaster with Stephanopoulos, the disgraceful settlement by CBS News, I don't think it's unfair to suggest that a headline, I don't know if it was in this case, Trump gives commencement address at West Point stressing a new era as opposed to saying what he actually said, may be an attempt to tamp down the message so that the guy who has become the de facto editor of every news outlet in America, Donald Trump, is not upset. I mean, that's not an unreasonable assumption, is it, Joan Donovan? Really?
Yeah, I think it is. I do think that there's a lot going on here under the subtext of, do we want to poke the bear?
Exactly.
That is driving a lot of these more flat headlines, especially around someone as expressly bombastic as the president. You wouldn't imagine, a straight headline that Trump gives meaningful, prestigious speech, is just, that would be the shocker, I think. That would be what ends up in the Onion.
Right. It was factually accurate. It was a new era.
Well, if they had the adjective meaningful in it from Trump, no one would believe that.
True.
So that wouldn't work. We've talked a lot about, since I think it was on Chuck Todd's Meet the Press that Kellyanne Conway talked about alternative facts in Trump's first term. And it used to be sort of the quaint approach of Donald Trump to facts was to lie about the facts. And the new approach is to eliminate the facts. And by the way, as shocked as I am, when I look at you, Joan, I'm sure you saw all these things coming. But for those, think about just the last week. A week ago, he fires the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who was just a fact deliverer, nothing else, because he didn't like the facts. And we all know whoever he appoints to replace her is going to last 3 minutes unless whatever they announce is exactly what he wants to hear. Defunding of public media, which means no media in many small rural parts of the country, which is elimination of fact. The disappearance, at least temporarily, of any record of his impeachment at the Smithsonian. The impeachments of other presidents are still there, not the impeachment. And so what observation do you have about it? This is as venal as it gets, it seems to me. And if this is just 1 week, well, PBS was a couple of weeks ago in NPR, there's much more to come. What should we expect, Joan Donovan?
Yeah, I've been routinely surprised and shocked, even for me. Been looking into this week, started seeing some people posting that on the Constitution's website, certain sections had been deleted and were now restored.
Wait. I didn't hear that.
Yes.
The United States Constitution?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a coding error and a couple of sections decided, weren't showing up.
Yeah, so on the official United States government website, parts of the U.S. Constitution were missing and they said it was a coding error.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but I look at this and I think about it in relationship to the way in which they scrubbed a bunch of medical and NSF funding by just looking, literally at the grants with the, Control F and looking for things like women, diversity, gender, equity, and started literally deleting things that they didn't like. And I wonder what the long-term effect of that's going to be on society, as our print world does start to recede into the distance, and we are relying more and more and more on digital servers to house our history, what is it going to be like in 10 or 15 years if they have scrubbed the internet of ideas and controversies and even policies of words and actions that they don't like, and how is that going to have downstream effects on our own history and knowing in the future. And this is where I think it blends into some of the bigger existential fears I have about AI capturing human history or even human knowledge in an accurate and sustainable way. I do think that unfortunately librarians are going to have to be up to the charge here. I'm very grateful for the work done by the Wayback Machine and folks over at archive.org that are part of the Internet History Museum, because without the Internet Archive, I don't know if we would have the evidence that would help us support what things are being kept online and what are being deleted by the government, and then also the way in which Trump is trying to shape the entire information ecosystem in his favor. I did a very interesting lecture last week at the Chautauqua Institution where I talked with about, it was a very large crowd of about 500 people about the implications for the Epstein files as well, where Trump is running in circles trying to control the discourse about it. And he's seeing more and more of his own loyal fan base start to ask probing questions about his relationships. And so I do think that even though they might take this very, platform style content moderation worldview into mind and say, well, if they can moderate content on platforms, we can moderate content across the world. We have to have Trump, we have to think more about what are the roles then of our librarians and our academics and our journalists in order to keep those kinds of things on the record, and then also archive them so that when he's no longer in power, we can restore these websites and also the history that we're missing.
I hate to be negative about everything, but I am, so let me be. You mentioned journalists and librarians. Journalists, many of whom are running in fear to kowtow to Trump in any way they can, many of whom are not. And librarians, who I have found to be fearless through most of my life, are being defunded by the federal government. I mean, he is as aware as you are about how important libraries and librarians are. And I can't remember what the name of that organization is that was on the cutting block, has been on the cutting block, that's central to funding of libraries. But he and his people are smart enough to say those who will protect the facts are those who we will ensure don't have the resources to do what Joan Donovan is saying,
I do think that this is a really important turning point. I've seen people putting out different calls to action that are like, hey, if you're going to pay Netflix, $12.99 a month, why aren't you paying, NPR the same amount, right? And so I do think it's going to cost consumers at this point to keep these institutions alive. But I do think ultimately it's going to be worth it in the long run. I would like to see, university libraries in small towns perhaps generate a subscription scheme for local patrons and support broader than the campus community, the other aspects of their community, because ultimately we either come together or we don't. The way in which they are centralizing power within the Trump administration into the executive branch is disenfranchising our members of Congress. And so things that we had voted for, had fought for, had funded, are now being stripped away. And so this kind of democratic backsliding is very important that we keep note of.
Joan, we're going to have to leave it there, but we appreciate that. Yep. And luckily, we don't have time to ask you about your existential threat dreams, because you're always right about that. So we'll thank you, Joan, for joining us.
Good to see you, Joan Donovan. Thank you so much.
We leave NEPM right now, so make sure you stay tuned for the fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. We continue here in Boston coming up after the noon news. We've got live music Friday with RedShaydez and JoiBeatz, and Nancy Gertner will not be rapping, but she'll be joining us. I'm Sue O'Connell. He's Jim Browdy. You're on BPR, GBH, and NEPM. Stay with us.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Braude and Margery Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Blythewald, with big, beautiful bamboo birds. 6 sculptures in the gardens, 15 to 30 feet tall, by artist duo The Mythmakers. Blythewald.org. And Creative Playthings, committed to supporting kids' outdoor active play this summer. Open for the Massachusetts sales tax holiday, August 9th and 10th. Showroom locations and swing set catalog available at creativeplaythings.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR Live from the Boston Public Library. It's Live Music Friday, this week with Boston artist JoiBeatz, with Boston Music Award-winning rapper and youth mentor RedShaydez. We'll talk with Red and hear live music from Joy.
I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Margery Egan. Then it's retired federal judge Nancy Gertner on the rule of law under Attorney General Pam Bondi. The latest out of the Supreme Court, and what's up with Alan Dershowitz on Martha's Vineyard. All that plus our Two More Things segment next on BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump presides over a peace signing ceremony today between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The South Caucasus neighbors had been locked in conflict since the late 1980s when an Azerbaijani region made up mostly of ethnic Armenians broke away with Armenia's support. Today's signing cements new economic and energy deals between the U.S. and the former Soviet states. The White House often promotes President Trump as an effective mediator in global conflicts. However, lasting ceasefires still elude the Trump administration in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Israel's announcing plans to expand its war in Gaza with the goal of ending it. The cabinet-approved plan includes taking control of Gaza City and setting up a power structure without Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. NPR's Emily Fang reports from the Israeli city of Tel Aviv.
And many people want the war to end. A poll of Israelis out this week found 54% of them want some kind of ceasefire to get hostages back, even if that means Hamas remains in power. And there have been dozens of growing protests across the country these past weeks against continuing the war.
NPR's Emily Fang. Israel says that it will distribute humanitarian aid to civilians outside the combat zone. However, it's unclear what that means since virtually all of Gaza is a combat zone. Meanwhile, Germany's chancellor says his government will stop sending weapons to Israel that could be used in Gaza. Here's NPR's Rob Schmitz.
Chancellor Friedrich Merz sharply criticized the humanitarian consequences of Israel's offensive in Gaza, saying that under the present circumstances, Germany will no longer approve exports of military equipment that could be used against Gazans. He added that Israel's intensified operations in Gaza make it increasingly difficult to see how goals like the release of Israeli hostages or the disarmament of Hamas could be achieved. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Germany supplied a third of Israel's arms exports between 2020 and 2024, second only to the U.S.
NPR's Rob Schmitz reporting. Democratic leaders across the United States say they are ready to fight back against President Trump's efforts to secure more safe Republican seats through redistricting. NPR's Ashley Lopez has more.
This all started with efforts in Texas to draw 5 more seats for Republicans. In response, Texas Democrats fled the state to stall the legislature's approval of a new map. In the meantime, Democratic leaders across the country are looking at ways to secure more seats for their party. California Governor Gavin Newsom wants voters to approve a ballot measure that would change their congressional map to add 5 more safe Democratic seats for the next 3 election cycles. New York Governor Kathy Hochul says she's also making plans to, quote, fight fire with fire. Ashley Lopez, NPR News.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 176 points at 44,145. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH studios in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. We've got breaking news at this hour. Suffolk County Sheriff Stephen Tompkins is now facing federal extortion charges. The U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts announced today that Tompkins, who has served as sheriff for more than a decade, was indicted on 2 counts of extortion under color of right. Tompkins was arrested in Florida, where he's due to make an initial appearance in federal court. Prosecutors claim in 2020 he extorted an executive with an unnamed cannabis company by pressuring the individual to give him stock. They say Tompkins later demanded a full refund of his initial investment of $50,000 after the company's public stock decreased in value. It's not yet clear if Tompkins has a lawyer. Looking at other headlines today, the state's campaign finance watchdog says super PACs have already shelled out more than $3 million in political races this year. The Office of Campaign and Political Finance reports most of the $3.7 million has come from efforts to oppose Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's bid for re-election. And a local Little League crew is on their way to the Little League World Series for the first time. Braintree American will open the Little League World Series next Thursday against Southeast Regional champs Irmo from South Carolina. Congratulations to the local boys. It's mostly sunny and 77 right now in Boston. You're listening to GBH News. Boston Public Radio continues next.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include ARM. On the latest episode of Tech Unheard, ARM CEO and host Renee Haas talks to musician and activist Peter Gabriel about how tech and AI are helping to shape the future in creativity and innovations.
Welcome to Hour 2 of BPR. Jim Browdy, media maven Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston is in for Margery. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. No library shows next week because there are no live shows next week. The whole BPR team is off for summer vacation. And as I said, the Culture Show is not on vacation. Jared's show will be live next week, including live next Friday here at the library, like it will be today at 2 o'clock. We made it to the end of the week in another round of Live Music Friday with JoiBeatz. She's a Boston-based rapper, producer, engineer, protege of Boston Music Award-winning rapper RedShaydez. That would be red right there. Hot Off Red's inaugural Artist Development Boot Camp. We'll explain what that is in a couple of minutes. Catch her at the Uncommon Stage by Emerson College on August 14th and September 4th. JoiBeatz, JoiBeatz.com. and musicjumpstart.org for more info. In a moment, we'll talk to both of them. For now, though, here's JoiBeatz performing Stolen Moments. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Like he said, my name is JoiBeatz, JoiBeatz, no space in between. This first song is titled Stolen Moments. Produced by KD, The Mellow Soul, is featured on an award-winning short film titled When I Wake, directed by Julian Mendoza. It was written while I was in Philly. The film was based in Chicago, so that's how the song basis comes from. So I hope you guys enjoy. Yeah. Stacking change from the dust mites and copper pennies. Anything in my pocket that could give me plenty. Since I grew from the streets that didn't welcome many people, not repping their blocks from the city in Philly. I hear violence of the slums. Her dudes killing anyone who's stacking more crumbs than them. Their favorite sin, they stay in the gym, playing a pin. When any dude sinks or swims, shark bait, forget all the fish in the sea. We ain't friends, don't try to make amends when you're not part of the cleanse. I may offend all the people that thought there was no end to their place in the rap game till I came to ascend. Representing your stolen moments. You was cut, but I was chosen. So let me give you a little dosage. Close your eyes for an ounce of joy. Potions. Representing your stolen moments. You was cut, but I was chosen. So let me give you a little dosage. Close your eyes. Excuse me for the thievery, I guess it's just the GME. Mass produce your vitamins like GNC conveniently. I'm vital to the till I release the creamery. Coffee in the morning, the trees that got you zoning. Added from the night to sunrise, it got you yawning. Never wanna stop, cause for me you're always longing. Like you addicted, it's all you wanting, huh? These moments with me is like a hidden treasure. Like the deep up in the ocean, guess I'm getting wetter. There ain't nothing lesser, nothing you can measure. You know you always get some gold when applying pressure. Representing your stolen moments. You was cut, I was chosen. Give you this little dose, just close your eyes for an ounce of joy. Cause you need this right here, it's magic you wantin'. Representing your stolen moments. You was cut, I was chosen. Give you this little dosage, close your eyes for an ounce of joy. Cause you need this right here, it's magic you wantin'. Little be changed. These are for all the crump dances and stuff like that. Yeah. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord will want to keep my soul. Cause when I wake, I'm killing every second of this beat. Forget the consequences, it's me living out my wildest dreams. It's in my jeans, no genuine, but this cup overflowed with many rhymes. Hit them with a silencer, I'm acting like many mimes. I've been sublime. Wanna be but part, but wasn't present within the climb. I hope you get the memo. Just trying to protect my mental, defend my tempo. Cause women's step can be detrimental. Erasing petty vibes like I'm a pencil. Doodle bob to you. I'm running around like I'm freaking mental. On these instrumentals, I skate across and cascade like my name's Rashad. I'm Nuna to your crew. After you hear this rap, you gonna wanna play it back to re-listen to all these freaking bars. Yo, I've been the boss. Just finally at my acknowledgement, I conquered this. You're witnessing to me that's finally confident. You're witnessing a monumental moment. I'm feeling like I'm chosen. Erasing many people's spot. You think I stole it from them, but at least that's what they hoping. So that is Stolen Moments. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Music Jumpstart and everybody in between.
JoiBeatz.
Great.
Join us, Joy, if you would, with RedShaydez.
That was fabulous. Thanks so much. My gosh,
Joy.
what a happy Friday for this. So let's talk first about what brought you to this music, to this experience, to this world. We'll start with you, JoiBeatz, because we just got you fresh off the mic. So
Yes.
how did you come to be who you are?
So I started my musical journey when I was 10 years old at the Blue Hill Boys and Girls Club. The music director there, Rick Agler, he introduced me to a lot of different instruments, how to write raps, how to produce, record in the studio, and perform, which led me to him introducing us to the Berkeley City Music Program. I joined that with guitar and then eventually went on to college in Philadelphia for music business, entrepreneurship, and technology.
This is what you're talking about here, RedShaydez, right? This
Yes.
is the kind of development and nurturing that you're all about. Talk a little bit about what you do, who you are, and why you were just beaming when JoiBeatz was performing.
Yes, I'm so proud. Great job. So I go by the name of RedShaydez. I'm a hip-hop artist here in Boston, Massachusetts, but I'm also a mentor and a creative entrepreneur. I had quite a challenging journey when I was pursuing rap music. I didn't really know where to start because we have a completely different industry. So I decided that I find most of my self-fulfillment from paving the way and showing others how to maybe skip some of the steps that I had to endure, so that they can have a smoother journey, a smoother ride to entrepreneurship.
And that's where this artist development bootcamp thing came about, right?
Yeah. So
what is it exactly?
So yes, Music Jumpstart is the artist development music hub. It's going to be like an online platform that offers one-on-one personalized consultations, album rollout strategy, anything that you need in music. Because I think when people realize that they want to be music artists, they don't know that you're opting in to being an entrepreneur. At least if you want to have a lucrative career with it. So we're here to get people while they're emerging and show them all the steps before they decide whether they want to be major or independent.
Why don't we talk to one emerging person and see what she thinks of this? What has this meant to you, Joy? How helpful in your career has this been?
It's been really helpful. I'm here now on GBH.
Yeah, that is correct. That is a fun fact.
This is my first time on the radio, so I got that opportunity. We're performing next week in the Boston Commons. So that's a great thing. And also as an entrepreneur, like she said, just learning about taxes and how to properly file for taxes and how to get your money in order so you don't owe a lot of taxes, and just other business-related stuff that was taught in the program, as well as like performance etiquette, interview etiquette, songwriting etiquette, all of the above.
Who funds this stuff, Red?
So I was luckily enough to be funded by the city of Boston, but then I also was funded by Elite Team Logistics as well for this first year.
What is that?
That's an aviation company. I know a lot of people are like, how did that happen? So I have to give a big shout out to Brian Henkel. We used to fly together when we used
Literally fly together?
We used to fly, on a chartered plane for the Boston Bruins. That was my first job out of college. And we were flight attendants together, but he went on to create his own company. And then, he funded me 10 years later.
Can we go back to the city thing? There's a lot. Jared did a forum a couple of weeks ago, Jared Bowen, with Mayor Wu, Josh Kraft, and is Delgado the name of the third candidate? My apologies to the third gentleman who is running, but with the two major candidates and the third candidate, how helpful is the city being to efforts like yours that probably couldn't get off the ground were it not for seed money from the city?
Yes, absolutely. It's been extremely helpful. So we call it MOAC, it's the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. I actually was applying for a contract that they had posted for an RFP, and I didn't get it, but they came back to me and they said, well, Red, we're very familiar with the work that you do. How about we give you your own funding, and then you do what you want to do with it. We'll just see, what blossoms from that. And so that's what I did.
And what do they get out of this?
They get notoriety. They get, hey, you funded this program, because I have no, plans on slowing down. Like, we want to expand. So they get to say we were the first funders.
But I didn't mean it facetiously. What is the benefit of the taxpayer in Boston for an organization like yours to prosper and artists like Joy to emerge? What's the value to us?
Well, it's going to help cultivate community that a lot of people worldwide don't think that we have.
Mm-hmm. Do we have it in Boston? Almost every time we have young artists here and people who are more established like you, we ask the same question. How supportive is this community? I don't mean City Hall. How supportive is this community?
Do you have places
to what
to
you're
play?
both doing?
Are there, talk about the scene. I mean, is it growing and nurturing artists? Because Boston, to Jim's point, Boston to me has always been almost... almost no matter what genre of music you're talking about, we usually get someone that breaks out, and then we're like, are we there yet? What's happening right now?
Yeah, so I think we have a beautiful DIY scene. And for those that don't know what that means, it's do it yourself. And I think we definitely will always have room to grow, right? But I don't think we have enough press on what is happening here. I think we have a vibrant scene with so much talent. That has never been the issue. Do we need more spaces, rehearsal spaces? Do we need more just buildings? Yes, that is something, in artist housing, but that's a whole other can of worms. But as far as, do we have a scene and can you start here? And what we're trying to show people with Music Jumpstart is that you can end here as well. You can stay here and have a lucrative career.
MusicJumpstart.org, JoiBeatz, JoiBeatz.com. You went to Philly, my hometown. Why'd you decide not to have your career grow in a community where I would say from afar, I haven't been there much in recent years, is maybe an easier place to grow with your kind of artistry than here? Why'd you decide to come back and do it?
Well, actually, so I feel like I met the people I needed to meet and networked with the people I needed to in Philly. Like, for example, one of my mentors, engineer mentors, his name is Ben Thomas. He's been working with Pharrell recently, Uzi. But since he's moving a lot, because he's with like the big artists, I had to basically cultivate mold my own path. And actually moving back to Boston benefited my career a lot more.
What if she wasn't here and organization wasn't? And I mean that sincerely. If she wasn't here and the organization wasn't here, where'd you be? What would you...
Well, there's so many other community endeavors here. Like there's like the Bridgeside Cypher. They offer a lot of community events. They are based in Cambridge, where you could go and rap and like perform live. I'm also at the Sound Lab in Brockton, Massachusetts as an engineer, and they host a lot of events for the community. Beat the Odds is a nonprofit organization that actually recorded Paul Willis. He was here before.
Yeah, he's been here.
I engineered his whole album.
Oh, you did? Oh, he's
so I
fabulous.
recorded and mixed that. So there are spaces and people here to help you grow. And RedShaydez is this, and Music Jumpstart is just another one on top of so many others that help youth and growing artists in the community.
How do people who are interested in Music Jumpstart, how do they get involved and how do they get selected? What's the deal?
Yeah, so this was our very first year, so I'll be transparent. We are currently trying to figure out what long-term sustainability looks like. We often have conversations about it's nice to receive funding, but what about after that? So currently people can visit musicjumpstart.org. They can donate. They can look at the current cohort because we're still not over yet, right? We're performing next week. But they can follow us on Instagram at Music Jumpstart as well, and just stay tuned for the updates. We are working behind the scenes.
And how does someone like Joy, who I'm interested in this, they hear this now, how do you determine, assuming that next year is as healthy as this one, that who's the next Joy? How do you decide who you...
So I handpick all of the artists myself. It's a very tedious process, but we put out an application, and we do it for about a month. And then every night for about 2 weeks, I'm listening, I'm reading the applications, and then you get selected by me.
That's an honest answer.
I want to talk about the institution of the music business.
Yes.
You know, I used to work in the music business back in the 80s and the 90s, and sometimes I think, wow, things have really changed. And I think, oh no, they really haven't. There's still the challenge of male-oriented institutions looking and listening to things from the male point of view. I was thrilled to know that you're a voting Grammys member, and the expansions and inclusiveness, and I mean that for all ways that you can define that the Grammys has really been working hard, sometimes not doing so well, sometimes doing better. How do you feel the music industry, the institutions of the business are doing right now when it comes to listening for new voices, adapting to how people are performing, where people are getting their music, making sure everyone is involved in bringing great, talented music to audiences?
Yes, I think we have a lot of ways to go still, but I do see them trying at least. I see more collaborations happening. I'm also a part of an organization called Women in Music, and that's our mission for people to realize all of the movers and the shakers who identify as women who are actually making things happen. So I think that we still have, some improvements to make, but I do see them trying to put us on the forefront.
Okay, before Joy performs again, we'll ask her what she's going to do in a second. What's up with these two performances that are coming up? You want to describe to us what's going on?
Yes, so we're so happy. We are partnering with BAMS Fest and Emerson for the Uncommon.
Oh, Catherine Morris was here, a couple from BAMS Fest a couple of
big
weeks
shout
ago.
out to Catherine Morris, big
great.
mentor there. We're joining forces with them. This happens from May to October, but they gave us 2 dates, August 14th and September 4th, where Music Jumpstart as a collective, we get to take over 2-hour blocks and get to perform and show them what we're all about and what we've been cultivating at Spark FM at Music Jumpstart.
And people can go, and they should go to, I assume, musicjumpstart.org to find out about how to get to one of the performances?
Yes, absolutely, and it's free, so you can just come down to Boston Common and check it out.
Fabulous. What are you going to perform for us?
A song called My Time Now, which is actually like a manifestation type thing, because I wrote it 2-3 years ago, and it's just talking about this is my time now, and what a better place to be to do it and premiere on the radio.
You seem pretty happy. Are you happy?
I guess that's where my name comes from.
Yeah,
Joy.
good point. Joy. Here you go. See?
That is foul. You want to gently put down your headset? We'll talk to Red for a second.
It would be funny if she was not so joyful, wouldn't
it? That'd be really
kind
horrible.
of an ironic sort of approach to it. So Red, talk to you about making sure people stay connected and know where things are happening. There's so many different places you can go for information. Where would you say, if you wanted to give a person one thing to look for to stay up to date on stuff?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people don't know about the Boston calendar, but I'm working to create some sort of bridge, to bridge the gap so people can know where to go. I try to post as many flyers as possible, but like Joy mentioned, the Bridgeside Cypher, we have even BAMS Fest. I think they're great at keeping everybody in the know. I don't think the city knows how much work that BAMS Fest does outside of their festival.
All right.
Okay, here's JoiBeatz performing My Time Now. Welcome back.
this song was also produced by Katie DeMello Soul. She is based in Philadelphia. Got a couple people waiting for me to climb out of my darkest season, and together we vibe out. There's only one reason for me to stop my shine now. I won't be defeated, so I'm like, it's my time now. Yeah, it's my time now. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's my time now. Yeah, yeah. I was always in the room, sleeping, not doing anything, hanging with people that only bring me constant pain. Making excuses on the why was my go-to thing, but then the spirit came to talk to me up in my dream. It showed the future so bright, no Martin Luther King. My sis, she told me pack light, cause old baggage cause strain. It took a while to connect the thoughts and put my brain, realizing I attracted what made me go so insane. So I spread out my wings, thinking my inner self for the spiritual change. I could fly up to whatever, there's no limit for me. Even through the stormy weather, it's something I foresee. It's my time now. Yeah, dropped off all that baggage and I'm shining so bright now. Yeah, you know I'm really feeling myself, upped up my style now. Yeah, imagine how much harder I'll go in my prime now. In my prime now. Contemplating, meditating my every move, orchestrating, steady rating what to improve, constantly bringing bad energy, yeah, you'll be removed. If I knew what I know now, others will disapprove. People pleasing, it costs them grieving through every step. People scheming, the demons plotting through every flex. There's a balance, just gotta make sure you stay in check. With my talent, I spread my joy through every breath. Not responding to petty messages. If you was meant for one season, then I ain't negligent. My intuition is telling me you ain't heaven sent. I'll contradict by saying your lesson was always meant for me to get to where I'm now, where I'm supposed to be. I trapped myself inside the box and now I'm broken free. Seeing everything I wanted cause I planted the seeds. It'll come if you believe. Got a couple people waiting for me to climb out of my darkest season, and together we vibe out. There's only one reason for me to stop my shine now. I won't be defeated, so I'm like, it's my time now. Yeah, it's my time now. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's my time now. Yeah, yeah. So I just want to thank GBH, Music Jumpstart, RedShaydez, KD DeMello Soul, the producer, my friends and family, everybody watching today, either live or on the radio. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is JoiBeatz, JoiBeatz, no space in between, on all platforms. Thank you so much. It's my time now, and it's y'all time now. Thank you.
What are we doing? Talking some more? Are we going to break? What are we doing,
We're not
Jim?
talking some more. We're thanking her for
thanking
great
them.
performance and
JoiBeatz,
wishing Red
thank
lots
you.
of good luck.
RedShaydez, thank you so much. Great to see both of you. You can catch them both, Joy and her other music, Jumpstart, appears at the UCommon stage by Emerson College on August 14th and September 4th. Coming up after this quick break, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner will be rapping. No, she will not, but she will be talking, and we're going to ask her a lot of fun questions about a lot of things happening on the vineyard, I hope. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. He's Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live from the BPL, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Trump administration has been scrutinizing colleges for anti-Semitism. Some students worry that conflates criticism of Israel with their everyday concerns.
If you meet a Jewish student at a party, the first thing out of your mouth after you find out that they're Jewish cannot be, what do you think about Israel?
I'm Elsa Chang, how the government defines anti-Semitism on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Burton's Grill and Bar, serving weekend brunch with dishes like cast iron French toast, chicken and waffles, and short rib hash. A gluten-free menu is available, with 8 locations in Greater Boston. burtonsgrill.com. And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Media Maven, Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. No BPL shows next week. In fact, no BPR shows live next week. The whole staff is on our annual summer vacation. We'll have best of. As I said, the Culture Show will be live from 2 to 3, including live at the library today and next Friday, and BPR is back live on August 18th. Joining us now on Zoom for On the Docket, we're joined by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Judge Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Good afternoon, Judge.
Nothing about law.
Oh, this is a good start.
Okay, how are we doing? Judge Gertner, you with us? Yes, I think she is. Hi there, how are you?
Hi there. Do you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
we do.
It was a little weird for a second. Nice to see you.
Okay.
Judge, we want to start with...
What do you mean? Wait a second. I say nice to see you, and your response is okay? That's it?
Nice to see you too, Jim.
Thank you very much, Judge Gertner. I really appreciate it.
He's going on vacation, Nancy. We're doing the best we can here to keep him engaged. All right. So you and Stephen Vladeck wrote an opinion, a guest essay for the New York Times talking about the attack on Justice Department officials, on judges, especially on this misconduct complaint against James Boasberg, who is the chief judge of the Federal District Court in Washington. Before we delve into that, can you just tell us who he is and why there has been a misconduct complaint against him?
So first of all, do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly now.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
James Boasberg is the chief judge of the district court in the District of Columbia. So this is the district court for essentially the District of Columbia. He was in the news originally because he was dealing with the case, if you all remember, of over 100 Venezuelans who were sent, who were the first airplane load of Venezuelans that were sent to the El Salvador prison. And he was dealing with whether that was illegal to do, and whether or not, when he found that it was not, or that it should be temporarily enjoined, whether the government went ahead and sent people to El Salvador anyhow. But before he got that case, before he was subject to that criticism, he was at a judicial conference. The judicial conference is the entity that governs all the federal judges in the United States. And there are district court representatives, and then there are chief judges of the various courts who go to this. Chief Justice Roberts has a breakfast meeting, which is essentially a schmooze. As much as Chief Justice Roberts can schmooze, this is a schmooze. There's a formal meeting during the day, and there's a breakfast meeting. And at the breakfast meeting, Roberts asks the incredibly complicated question, what's going on in your courts? Okay, and some judges talked about what marshals, the threats against judges, and whether the marshals are up to the task. And Chief Judge Boasberg said, my colleagues are concerned about whether the Trump administration will obey orders. So this was in March 11. Now, at that time, the newspapers, this program, everyone was filled with discussions about what would happen if the Trump administration doesn't obey orders. So he was reflecting his colleagues' concern, and in fact, concern of any thinking human being. This was a private meeting, a breakfast meeting, a schmooze. Someone leaked the contents of that meeting to Bondi, to the Federalist, actually. It was a Federalist Society periodical. Bondi turned that into a misconduct claim against Boasberg, claiming that, first of all, lying about what it is he said, claiming that he said he was afraid the government was not going to obey orders, and that he was doing that for the purpose of influencing the Chief Justice and every round table. It was, bonkers. In the New York Times article, Vladeck and I called it preposterous. It really isn't even close to legitimate. And I was troubled that anyone treated it as such. Lied about what he said, lied about the setting in which he said it, lied about what is conceivably misconduct. And then when she filed the misconduct accusation, formal complaint against Boasberg, she does it in a tweet. Allegations of misconduct against judges are supposedly confidential until they are investigated and determined to have substance. So she violates the law in the way she does it. She lies in the complaint. She lies about the setting. And the only reason that she is doing this is to intimidate federal judges. And so that's what I went ballistic when I saw this, because this isn't even close to legitimate. This is essentially a lie from beginning to end.
You know, Nancy Gertner, we're going to hold this for about 30 seconds. I think we're going to call you on the phone because you break up from time to time. So sit tight, and we're going to call you on the bat phone in about 30 seconds there. This is the judge. I don't know if you heard everything Judge Gertner said. This is the judge that ordered the Trump administration to stop the flight. They didn't, and turn around. Mm-hmm. They didn't turn around. They continued to El Salvador, and the contention by the Trump administration was, it was too late. They were already there. Or it was too late to contact them, which was one of the situations that was discussed in a great Washington Post piece a couple of weeks ago about how in roughly a third of the cases around Trump, according to the Washington Post, there has been outright denial, outright refusal to comply with a court order, and this was one of these things. And I think we can see Judge Gertner, I think, is working on the phone thing here. I'll say this, what she said, I think, is the most important thing at the end there. It's an attempt to muzzle not just Boasberg, but to me, it's exactly the same thing that he's trying to do to law firms, to news outlets, to universities, to send a chilling effect. If you speak up, even in a totally appropriate way, your life can be made totally miserable, like I assume they intend to make Boasberg's, and hope that other federal judges are... Oh, there it is. Can you hear us, Judge?
Wait, I think, can you hear me now?
Perfectly. Yeah, that's perfect. Judge, can I follow up on the discussion, what you said right before we cut you off a minute ago? This whole, I don't know if you used the word chilling effect, but obviously the goal is not just to muzzle Boasberg, but as you said, the federal judiciary, a la what's happened with law firms, some universities, some news outlets, major news outlets, that kind of thing. You're a former federal judge. When a situation like this happens, does the generic, and I don't mean you because we know you, the generic federal judge now think twice before they say something that is totally appropriate for fear that the weight of the Justice Department comes down on them?
Well, there are all, do you hear me now, by the way?
Perfectly, yes.
Yeah. Okay. There are already limits on what a judge can say. So, but a judge is allowed to talk about the administration of justice. I testified against mandatory minimums when I was a sitting judge. You're allowed to talk about systemic things. So that's completely permissible. Will judges think twice about speaking? No question about it. They'll think twice about speaking, though, in part because of what Bondi did. But frankly, in these fraught times, I think judges will think twice about speaking out, which is unfortunate because, as I said, we're supposed to speak about the administration of justice, supposed to speak about systemic issues. You're not supposed to talk about a particular case. You're not supposed to talk about a particular, legal issue that will be in front of you, but you're surely supposed to talk about access to justice issues, questions about, I testified in favor of cameras in the courtroom. That's all okay, but that speech, I have no doubt, will be chilled. No doubt.
Judge Gertner, how many federal judges testified when you testified in favor of cameras in the courtroom?
Well, there was me, and then on the other side was the representative of the Judicial Conference of the United States.
That was it, correct?
That was it, right. That was it. No one was in favor. I was the only one in favor. The entire Judicial Conference was on the other side. But that's another discussion.
That is another discussion, one of my favorite discussions. We're speaking to Federal Judge Nancy Gertner, former Federal Judge Nancy Gertner.
Judge, another story that we've been covering and will continue to cover is the mishigas of the redistricting situation that's happening in Texas. And of course, although those of us who just have a basic understanding of how this happens believe it's a state issue, the states get to make the decisions on their redistricting, whether it's usually fraught and political under the best of circumstances, unless some states which do have independent commissions that make this up. But on the backdrop of all of this, the underpinning, it is, of course, the Supreme Court in the rulings that they, over the past years, have released. Of course, in 2019, Supreme Court swept aside the idea that federal courts could rein in lawmakers' power to draw maps to entrench their own power. Yet, we also see them stepping in other ways. What's your take on what's happening in Texas and what the implications may have with the cover of the Supreme Court and other courts?
Well, what the Supreme Court did is essentially it basically wrung its hands about gerrymandering, said there was nothing that it can do. But I think the Texas case has to be put in context. We don't have one man, one vote in the sense that we divide up the country into states. So you have representation through the states. And within the House of Representatives, you have representation through the ways in which a given state is divided. So those are decisions that are supposed to be made after the census, on the theory that when people move from one state to another, or within a state, one city to another, the numbers of representatives should reflect the change in population patterns. We do not do redistricting outside of the regular time, and we don't do redistricting for the purpose of entrenching a particular political party. That may happen every 10 years. I don't doubt that happens. That's the classic gerrymandering.
When the census comes out.
That's right. When the census comes down, there's no question that political considerations enter into the way we carve up the map. There's no question about it. And the Supreme Court threw its hands up and said there's nothing that can be done with gerrymandering. But surely changing the map with, out of turn, because the polls show that you're losing and you're likely to lose the House of Representatives, isn't close to legitimate. So what the Texas representatives are doing, the Democratic representatives are leaving the state to prevent Abbott and the Texas legislature from redoing the map for the sole purpose, not reflecting population shifts, but reflecting poll changes, because Trump understands that he's going to lose calamitously in the midterm elections next year. That's not even close to legitimate.
Judge Gertner, my understanding, without giving people a headache, is what Sue was describing at first, so-called partisan gerrymandering, recreating districts to benefit one party over another. The Supreme Court of the United States a bunch of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, said we're out of that business. Federal courts will not get involved in that. But what they said they will continue to get involved in limited circumstances is racial gerrymandering, where the proven intent of the redistrictors is to deny representation to people based upon their race. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Supreme Court just took a case a couple of days ago in which they are raising questions about whether or not they should even be involved in those situations, which means, I guess, it's likely they'll say the same thing about racial gerrymandering, which will give state legislatures or whatever the redistricting authority is in a state, the authority to brazenly discriminate in redistricting based upon the race of the constituents?
Essentially, the case that they just took is the last part of the Voting Rights Act. So the Voting Rights Act that had been passed in the 60s was intended to deal with the fact that southern states were essentially crafting laws that would stop Black people from voting. Mm-hmm. And so before they could change their map, there had to be a pre-clearance. They had to have it approved. Certain states that had a history of discrimination had to have their maps pre-cleared by the Department of Justice. That part was wiped out by the Supreme Court in a case called Shelby County.
John Roberts, right? Written by the Chief Justice, right?
That's right. The only way to stop discrimination against race is to stop discrimination against race, is what he said. What remained is challenges where the net effect of the redistricting was to wipe out black voting or dilute it by putting the black vote in a white district. And the net effect, disparate impact it's called, or where there's intentional racial gerrymandering. The Supreme Court has taken a case that deals with those, I think it's both of those issues, whether it's disparate impact, in other words, you're making a decision whose net effect is to discriminate against blacks versus I know I'm discriminating against black people and that's why I'm doing it. I believe, although I'm not completely sure, that the case they took involves both theories. The Texas legislature will say, we're not discriminating. The reason why the disparate impact theory is important is because the Texas legislature will cover what they're doing and claiming it's not for the purpose of dealing with wiping out black voting, but they're going to deal with it because of population shifts or whatever else they will say. Or they don't even have to say anything. They will say it's partisan gerrymandering because the Supreme Court said that was okay. The point is, everyone understands the game of partisan gerrymandering, but it's done every 10 years, ostensibly in reaction to the census. You have to at least be grounded in the census. To do it based on the likelihood that Trump is going to be wiped out in the Republican Party is going to be wiped out in the midterms is not just an illegitimate method, gerrymandering, but an illegitimate reason. And his sole purpose is in order to keep the power that he has now. So that's why the Texas legislatures, the Democratic Texas legislators have left the state to prevent this from happening.
We're talking about federal judge, former federal judge Nancy Gertner.
Another thing, Judge, that the Supreme Court has delivered to us this year is a ruling for an Ohio woman to lesser qualified gay candidates because she was straight. And many experts said this is going to open the floodgates to allow white workers to sue for bias. Here in Boston, we're seeing former WBZ TV anchor Kate Merrill making a lawsuit against her company, claiming she was fired as part of a nationwide anti-DEI movement. I should note that I know a few people who work, I don't know Kate at all, I know a few people who work at WBZ. And we should note, as Shirley Leung noted in her column for the Boston Globe today, Kate Merrill, who is a white woman, was replaced by a white woman for the job that she says she was moved out of because she was a white woman. Are we going to see more of these cases? And is there a leg to stand on here for some of these? I know obviously each case is different, but it does seem we're going to see more of them.
There's no question we're going to see more of them because Trump has gone on an anti-DEI campaign. And people think that his anti-DEI campaign also means that it's sort of open season to discriminate. DEI the DEI diversity, equity, and inclusion cases, sort of started with the challenge, not started with, but the challenge to Harvard's admissions and supposedly affirmative action in admissions was what the Supreme Court disallowed. And there's an argument that you can't, in actual hiring decisions, put your finger on the scale and say, I will pick people of color or I will pick gay people. But there's no reason to say that you can't have an open opportunity you can't do things to make it more likely that Black people will apply or make it more likely that women will apply to jobs traditionally for men. There's nothing wrong with that. But Trump has muddied the waters so that people think that essentially it's fair game to discriminate. This is a reverse discrimination claim that essentially enabled by Trump's DEI claims. We've seen them before, but certainly the recent Supreme Court decision makes the claims easier to bring, reverse discrimination claims, that is. So I think, it's enabled by an anti-DEI campaign that has bled into we have a right to discriminate message, plus the Supreme Court's decision making the standard for reverse discrimination the same as for regular discrimination. But the bottom line is these cases are extremely difficult to win, So I would, certainly based on Shirley Lang's column, I would be skeptical.
By the way, the actual line that Shirley had that was described quite well by Sue was, well, that's rich. White blonde TV anchor is replaced by another white blonde TV anchor, and somehow that's reverse discrimination only in 2025, writes Shirley. You should read the Globe coverage and Shirley's piece. So what we really wanted to get to today was a good friend of yours, Alan Dershowitz.
And we waited until the end.
So you know Alan Dershowitz.
Sorry, I have to leave.
You know
She's breaking up. We can't hear. No,
you know Mr. Dershowitz, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know him, Judge?
Am I being cross-examined?
I know,
You are,
she's
yes.
answering like she is.
Briefly,
I've known him for many, many years. When I was a young lawyer, he shared cases with Harvey Silverglade, who was my partner at the time. So I met him way back when.
Okay, so before we get to current events around Pierogi-gate that happened on Martha's Vineyard, which we want you to comment on, you wrote a piece for BUR. Was it Cognoscenti or something? Maybe 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago, wasn't it? Criticizing your former colleague Alan Dershowitz about his arguments for defending the Trump administration and Trump in particular. Is that correct, Judge, or no?
Yeah, he wrote it. He was on the radio claiming that Bob Mueller had been responsible for the wrongful imprisonment of 4 men. This is a case that I had when I was a judge. And when I heard him say that Bob Mueller, because Bob Mueller was in the middle of this controversial investigation of Trump for the Russia ties, now controversial, wasn't so much then. So when Dershowitz said Mueller was involved in making sure that these 4 men were wrongly convicted, I went crazy because that case had been my case as a judge, and Mueller was not involved, not mentioned, and wasn't in town. So I wrote an op-ed for the New York Times that this was...
Times, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the New York Times, that this was crazy, that this was just false, and Dershowitz should not have said it. And the implication of that is the fact that he was saying something like this, inventing something like this, strongly suggested his bias in favor of Trump.
Okay, so this may be not quite as serious as misrepresenting a ruling of Judge Gertner at the time, but for the few people who are not aware of this, Alan Dershowitz spends a lot of time on Martha's Vineyard. The other day, he understandably, because who doesn't like a pierogi, goes to a pierogi stand and attempts to buy pierogies, and the pierogi booth leader says, I'm not going to sell to you because I don't like your politics, I don't like who you represent. It turns out specifically people like Epstein and other sexual abusers. And Alan Dershowitz was not happy. He said the guy was an anti-Semite and that's why he wasn't doing it. Well, in typical Alan Dershowitz fashion, he returned to the pierogi vendor a second time in an attempt to sort of, what did he say, like a coming together kind of thing. He brought a pamphlet accusing them of being bigots and anti-Semites, which is a wonderful way to restart a relationship. Yeah. And after a tense back and forth, here's the surrounding crowd response to Mr. Dershowitz attempting to cow the pierogi vendor.
Time to go. You can Time to go. I'm gonna pick it up. Time to go. I'm sorry. Time to go. I'm sorry. Time to go. You just called me a key. You just called me a key again. It is not a slip-up.
There are other people that want pierogies. Go home, Alan.
If you didn't hear that at the end, one man in the crowd says, there are other people who want pierogies, and then the second man says, go home, Alan. Now, I'm assuming, sadly, you will not be writing a piece for the New York Times on this, but what's your reaction to this, since you know the man a little bit better than we do, Judge Gertner?
I mean, there are lots of serious issues in the world. There are lots of serious problems. There are lots of issues with the Trump administration. There are lots of constitutional crises. forgive me, Alan, this is not one of them.
Well, I think that sums it up pretty well.
That's my reaction.
That is, do you like pierogies or you don't?
I do.
Who doesn't like a good pierogi?
That's right.
Excellent. Judge Gertner, it's great to see you. Be well. We thank you so much for your thoughts, Judge Nancy Gertner.
Nancy Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and BPR contributor. Coming up after
How do you feel about pierogies?
I love pierogies. I would also like to point out that you wanted to know what it takes for people to take to the streets to absolutely protest. It means being separated from their pierogies.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, Alan. We want pierogies. Okay, after the break, do we have enough time for our two more things?
Well, at least be one more thing.
All right, we'll try some things. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH. We're live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Asian directors, actors, cast, and crew have dominated recent award seasons, and culturally relevant Asian stories in film, on TV, and streaming continue to resonate with audiences. What are the latest Asian-led entertainment projects elevating Asian representation? That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Babson College. You can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's virtual graduate admissions workshop is on August 27th. Registration at babson.edu/gradworkshop. And Innuendo, open now and during the Massachusetts sales tax holiday this Saturday. Hunter Douglas's complete line of automated window treatments available for purchase. Hunter Douglas at Innuendo and innuendo.com.
Welcome back to BPR. I am Jim Browdy. The other human here is media maven, NBC 10 Boston, Sue O'Connell, sitting in for Margery. We're live from the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. No live shows next week here or anywhere else, by us, I mean. We'll have best ofs every day. We hope you listen. The Culture Show will be live 2 to 3 every single day, including live at the library like it is today. And we'll be back live, BPR will, on August 18th. Now it's time for two more things, likely one more thing, by Sue O'Connell. Take it away.
Okay, I have to talk about the U.S. Air Force, who has decided to deny early retirement benefits to some of their transgender service members. A memo came out this week. The Associated Press has seen it. The Air Force says they are fulfilling the guidelines that the Trump administration executive order that was issued earlier this year, saying that being trans is incompatible with service in the Air Force and in the armed services. As you may or may not know, sometimes when you leave the service, the Air Force especially, after 15 to 18 years, you actually are able to use your retirement benefits at this point. They have been telling trans members that if they leave, when they leave, they will not have access to these benefits. So our service members who volunteered to serve our country have served for 12 to 18 years. A draft dodger in chief in the White House.
So glad you said that.
Who did everything he could to not serve our country and who has done nothing but disparage the armed services members and veterans, is denying them access to something that they earned in service to our country.
And the consequences, I should say, since we are running, the consequences in terms of benefits in one's future life after you voluntarily decided to serve your country. And by the way, every single impartial observer who talked about the quality of their service said their service was equal to that of straight people and other people. But because the draft dodger, 5 deferments for bone spurs or whatever he had, has a you-know-what up his you-know-what. These people are totally, this is another area. I know it seems to me that even if you're not somebody, or if you're somebody who's still uncomfortable with trans people, and as we've discussed, I think it's only because you probably don't know a trans person, sort of not surprisingly, the fact that there's not an uproar about this, again, people who've served their country, is unbelievable to me.
And of course, like anybody else, they serve for as long as they can so they can get their retirement benefits, right? I mean, and then you're told, no, we're just pulling the rug out from underneath you. So that's deplorable. All right.
Glad you mentioned it. That's it.
Out of time. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, scientists and explorers behind the PBS documentary that airs tonight, Beneath the Polar Sun. Jim is taking taking off. He's leaving early.
I am leaving.
Going on vacay, but Jared Bowen is on the bench, and I'm going to tap him in.
Look who's here.
I'm tapping him in. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. He was Jim Browdy. Jared Bowen is up next. You are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Join GBH and wealth planning strategist Jerry Doyle for Peace of Mind for Modern Families. Doyle will share his knowledge on all stages of estate planning. Wednesday, August 20th. Learn more at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology. Open enrollment courses include over 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. executive.mit.edu.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of BPR Live from the Boston Public Library with Jared Bowen sitting in for me. For his day job, Rhode Island filmmaker Stephen Smith works as an Arctic expedition leader. Alongside Brown University oceanographer Chris Horvat, they've created a new documentary, Beneath the Polar Sun, capturing the perilous conditions facing scientists in a rapidly changing Arctic.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Egan. Have we finally reached the end of the hideous yet somehow comfortable and marvelous Crocs? The shoe company's share price has tumbled as consumers choose holeless shoes over the ugly foam clogs. Have you given up Crocs in favor of real shoes, or are you a die-hard Crocs fan, rocking Jibbitz till the bitter end? Crocs and you. Call or text with your thoughts next. BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A federal grand jury has issued subpoenas to New York Attorney General Letitia James, who won a civil fraud case against President Trump and his company. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports Trump has singled out James for public criticism in the past.
Two sources told NPR the criminal probe into James is being led by the top federal prosecutor in Albany. The DOJ wants more information from New York's Attorney General about her successful suit against Donald Trump and his business. The department appears to be operating under a theory that James may have deprived Trump and his adult children of their rights as part of that case, the sources said. Abby Lowell, a lawyer for James, called the new probe, quote, a blatant and desperate example of the president's campaign of retribution. Lowell says it appears to be a case of weaponizing the DOJ to try to punish an elected official for doing her job. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
Israel's plan to take over Gaza City, one of the last areas of the territory not already under Israeli control, dominated Vice President J.D. Vance's meetings today in England. NPR's Lauren Frere has more from London.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Israel's plan to take over Gaza is wrong and says prospects for peace are, quote, vanishing before our eyes. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says his government will stop sending weapons to Israel that could be used in Gaza. Meanwhile, France, the UK, Canada, and others are preparing to recognize a Palestinian state. Vice President Vance says that's a point of disagreement among allies.
Obviously, the United Kingdom is going to make its decision. We have no plans to recognize a Palestinian state.
Vance spoke to reporters alongside UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy. The two say they're also discussing global economics and efforts towards ceasefires in both Gaza and Ukraine. Lauren Frere, NPR News, London.
Texas Republicans eager to approve a redrawn congressional map in the state legislature will find out in a couple of hours if their Democratic colleagues are a no-show. If that happens, Governor Greg Abbott could find replacements should there be a court ruling that finds the Democrats have abandoned their offices. Gene Wu, the chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus, spoke to NPR from Chicago.
Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton have no power outside of the state. If they follow the law, the FBI, President Trump, has no power to intervene in something that they do not have jurisdiction to intervene in. That's assuming that they follow the law.
The Democrats left Texas Sunday arguing that Republican lawmakers, at President Trump's urging, are attempting to cement their power in Congress by unlawfully redrawing the state legislative map ahead of next year's midterm elections. President Trump has said the GOP is entitled to pick up 5 seats in Texas. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 182 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH studios in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Suffolk County Sheriff Stephen Tompkins has been arrested after a federal grand jury indicted him on 2 counts of extortion under color of official right. Prosecutors claim in 2020 he pressured a cannabis company executive to give him stock before the unnamed company went public. They say Tompkins later demanded a full refund of his initial investment of $50,000 after the company's public stock decreased in value. Tompkins was arrested in Florida and is due to make an initial appearance in federal court there. The U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts says he will appear in federal court in Boston at a later date. Also new today, the Boston Celtics are signing head coach Joe Mazzulla to a multi-year contract extension. The team made the announcement, though the length and details of the deal were not released. Mazzulla, who's 37, led the team to the 2023-24 NBA championship. The Associated Press reports he was the youngest head coach to do it since the 1968-69 season, when 35-year-old Bill Russell led the Celtics to the championship as a player-coach. In other sports news, the Patriots host the Washington Commanders for a preseason game at 7:30. The Red Sox take on the Padres in San Diego starting at 9:40. Mostly sunny and 78 right now in Boston. Boston Public Radio with Jared Bowen and media maven Sue O'Connell continues next. You're listening to GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
All right, we're back. We are back with a brand new team. Very exciting. Hour number 3 at BPR. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell. I'm in for Jim Browdy now. I was in for Margery Egan. We have gone to the A team, to the A bench.
So I'm in for Sue O'Connell, who's in for Margery Egan.
That
is
is
how
correct,
this works?
Jared Bowen.
I'm Jared Bowen. Great to fill in for this last half hour, last hour with you.
I know. Pay attention, please, Jared. Please try and catch up. We're live at the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Now remember, Jim has only said it 5,222 times. No live BPR shows next week. They're on tape for their summer break. So if I appeared on the show, I imagine I'm going to get a check for my appearance, a royalty check. But we'll see how that works out.
But the Culture Show we are live every day next week, including next Friday here at the library.
All right. A couple of years ago, a New England-based research team with first-time Arctic explorers set out near the North Pole to measure the world's largest and oldest sea ice flows. Let's take a listen.
Never been able to do this. So it's astounding. I mean, it really is something amazing that I didn't think I'd get to ever do. It's going to tell us something about why the flows are changing here.
They knew the data, but nothing prepared them for what they found on the ground, crumbling ice that made their expedition nearly impossible. And joining to talk about all of this right now and their adventure and what it means for scientists and for you is filmmaker Stephen Smith. He's an expedition leader who's led projects in the high Arctic for 40 years. And Chris Horvat, a polar oceanographer at Brown University. Welcome to both of you. Their adventure was captured in the PBS documentary Beneath the Polar Sun. It airs tonight at 6 on GBH 44. Welcome to both of you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Congratulations on the documentary, where I think what's so compelling here is that you take us there and you show us what's happening, something that we can't always conceptualize when we're reading about what's happening in the Arctic. But tell us about where you went and why you chose this area specifically.
Well, we set off to the very northern tip of North America, right where Greenland meets, the northern tip of Canada, essentially. And there's a passage there that runs down. It's a strait that runs down between the two countries, and that strait is really unique in that it's one of the few corridors that leads out of the Arctic Ocean. And so we set off to go up there because we specifically wanted to find these old sea ice flows. And the sea ice flows, when I talk about sea ice is something different. It's not icebergs. So we're a completely different type of ice. This is frozen ocean. So this is the ice that's made out of the frozen ocean. And that part of the Arctic has been deemed the last ice area, where this will be the place where, we'll have the longest period of time ahead of us for the survival, the existence of these old ice flows. And so that's why we went up there.
So why is the sea ice important? I watched the documentary, so I know the answer to this. But, folks, like you said, often just think of, the ice that's up there that people are standing on, that animals are standing on, what's happening. But the sea ice performs a very, very important function that we're probably not aware of, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, basically, I think this is just repeating something that's in the film, but the ice is white and it's reflective. So, when you have this like a school bus or a UPS truck, you see this white surface, it's to reflect sunlight. And the Earth has this area of the oceans and the land covered by ice that reflects solar radiation, and it keeps the Earth relatively cool. So when the sea ice disappears, you replace this bright white material with dark ocean, which absorbs sunlight. So changes to the polar seas are actually really important. They only cover about 7 or less % of the global surface, but they're responsible for like 30 to 50% of the changes we've experienced in global temperature.
And what are some of the changes that we're seeing that you think we can relate to this change that's happening in the Arctic?
Well,
go, Chris.
Certainly there's less sort of changes directly here, like in Boston, but there's certainly big changes occurring in the Canadian and American Arctic. So you see, with the retreat of sea ice, this massive retreat of shoreline. So there's now this open water, and you have waves coming up and like basically pulling away, 30 to 50 feet a year of coastline. And at the same time, the Arctic warms maybe 3 to 4 times faster than the rest of the world. So there are places that are typically used to being, cold year-round that have extremely warm summers, like heat waves comparable to what we experience down south that are that far north. And Stephen, you've made this trip before, so that you had something to compare to from decades ago. And this documentary really follows this expedition that you expected to have that didn't quite turn out as you expected it to turn out because of the changing landscape. What did you find this time that you hadn't anticipated? How much climate change has impacted this landscape over the last 20 years?
Well, that's right, Jared. The last time that I had actually completed an expedition down the length of that strait between Canada and Greenland was in 2004. And at that time, we were kind of pioneers in retracing that, or I should say pioneers in traveling down that strait, because the only time it had actually been passed through before in small boats was back in the 1880s. There was an expedition up there, an American expedition that did that. And so we had their records. And I can say that in 2004, we experienced the same kind of conditions that these guys did back in the 1880s. And their conditions and our conditions at that time were these massive flows, like sea ice flows that were as thick as the height of this room, so like 30, 40 feet high, sea ice flows that were the size of, say, Manhattan, or maybe even Rhode Island, sea ice flows that were like literally so far across that they would bridge all the way to Greenland. And when a sea ice flow gets lodged into that strait between Canada and Greenland, it stops everything from flowing past it. And so we had a lot of open water in certain parts of that strait that we were able to navigate quite easily. This time around, the sea ice flows, like I'm talking about when we went through for this film project, the sea ice flows were all broken into small pieces, most of which were the size of, a living room or a house or what have you.
And this
very
is because
small.
they're melting into small pieces.
It's because the ice is just not forming in the winter like it used to. The ocean is too warm, thanks to all of this solar energy that it's been absorbing. The oceans have not been cold enough to freeze into these really super thick flows. And so this passageway now is wide open on a year-round basis, and that ice is able to flow out of the Arctic south to where all that ice is going to melt. So that would be the most dramatic change of all, is the fact that we went from having these massive flows that were like literally the size of Rhode Island to now having chunks of ice that don't have any structural integrity to them anymore. They're just chunks of ice that are drifting freely in the current.
Now, of course, the challenge of any trip like this, any adventure like this, is you don't know what you're getting into, even if you know what you're getting into and have been there before, as you're saying. But you guys, you had a couple of serious adventure-like danger that you encountered while you were on this expedition. Can you talk a little bit about that? Since you're here, I imagine you were successful. So
yeah, we did survive eventually.
Yes.
We didn't have to shoot and hunt our food, but yeah, we were stuck in a storm that was like stronger than hurricane strength winds for about 5 or 6 days, and there were 5 of us on the expedition. So I didn't know what I was getting into, and I think
you had never really done something like this before.
I had never been up there. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. I went to school here in Boston, and so I kind of what sharing all of this space with 5 other people would look like. So it was pretty terrifying, this particular storm. We slept like 21 or 22 hours every day for 5 days. And
Chris, did you keep looking at everyone else to see what the look on their eyes was? I remember the first time I flew in an airplane, I was 17, and it was so turbulent, but I was so used to riding on the blue line, I didn't think there was a problem, right? And then suddenly we landed in a veteran flyer. It was like, that was the worst thing ever. I mean, we were looking around like, I think we're okay, I don't know.
Steve did a good job of keeping us calm at different times. But there was definitely some panic setting in for a few of us, I think.
I think the big thing was to get enough ballast in the tent. We had 3 tents, but we made sure that we got all the weight shifted over into the one tent, onto the one wall that the winds were, assaulting us on, and that helped. But this was Chris's first time camping.
Yes.
He had never been in camping before, and there we were, So.
You weren't even a Boy Scout.
Nope.
And there's nowhere to hide up there. Like, it's not like you can get behind a boulder or a tree or something like that. There's just nowhere to hide.
Well, there are a few animals, so you document this in a couple of different points, including finding narwhals. So this is glorious, but also a little scary for how far north they are. Let's listen to a little bit of your film. One morning, the crew wakes up and hears the sound of narwhals, the furthest north Steve has ever seen them. And then this rather humorous exchange happens.
I don't get narwhal. Like, they're not seals, but they're not really whales either.
Well, they're little toothed whales. They're a dolphin. Yeah, they're like a dolphin.
A manatee with a horn. It's got a horn, though.
It's got a tooth.
Oh, come on.
Aw, Steve.
I know. It's a tooth.
It's like a unicorn. Yeah.
They are kind of like unicorns.
Famous, of course, in the movie Elf.
That's right. So what was it to experience this pod, but also what was the significance of seeing them so far north?
Well, the significance is those are the northernmost sightings ever of those whales, in modern times at least, that we know of. The significance is when you have the ice that's that broken up, you're going to have little areas where whales like that can kind of work their way northward. If there was a great big blockage of the strait, like there was in the past, it could be harder for those whales actually to find a place to go past that blockage, because they don't like going under the ice for long extended periods of time, because if they do, they don't have the capacity, to hold on to enough air, to breathe. So yeah, seeing them up there that far north is kind of also another indication of the ice being so broken up that there were lots of places that they could rise to the surface and get air.
Talk to us a little bit too, and we just touched on this a second, like seeing the data having been there before, expecting that you're going to see something and then getting there and seeing it's much worse than you had expected it to be. This, of course, this area is the part of the globe, is the cooling section of the globe for us, for the rest of the world. And at the same time, we are seeing massive challenges still to climate crisis, federal funding, the collecting of data, the importance that NASA plays in collecting data around the world. What kind of threat are we seeing now from our lack of federal government funding to collect data like this, aside from, heading out there yourselves and doing it?
You want to speak to that?
Well, I certainly think it remains extremely important to go up and measure things in the Arctic. I mean, I'm a case study of that. I mean, my research group is founded on, observational research in the polar regions. And, until I had gone up there with Steve, Diana, and Bryce and Mike, I had not had that experience personally. So continuing to find opportunities for US-funded researchers to go into the Arctic, that includes like vessels, like icebreakers, that we need to actually go and make measurements and sample the ocean and the atmosphere in both places is really critical. And threats to that are obviously going to challenge our ability to monitor the places that are changing the most rapidly on the planet. So I think that's a very clear place that you can see in this film that, without these sort of observations and in-person studies, you can't really understand from afar what's going on. And I certainly didn't, and it's changed a lot of how I conduct my research and my group does as well. Well, I think what we see from space and from satellite is very different, or can be interpreted differently than what you see on the ground. So if you're looking at a satellite image of these pieces of ice in Nares Strait, often the sensors on satellites might only cover a region that's like 6 or 12 kilometers wide. So that looks pretty white to me. It's pretty blended together. But when you go there and you sit on the ice or leapfrog and lily pad around on the ice, you realize it's not this big sort of like solid ice surface. It's a very variable thing that's moving really quickly. And so without this opportunity to see that in person, you could be misled into thinking that everything is very constant and sort of supported and structurally integrous.
As we've been talking about, there aren't a lot of people who've had the experience that you both have had. What does it take to get up there?
Well, it's a bit of an investment of time and money for sure. You can fly commercial air from either Montreal or Ottawa. It's about $10,000 a seat to get to the northernmost place that commercial air flies to. So that's your first cost. But then when you get there, if you're like us, what we did is we chartered that Twin Otter aircraft, which is this short takeoff and landing aircraft, the workhorse in the north. And there's one of them in Resolute that Resolute is the last place that you can fly to commercially. There's one aircraft for commercial charter up there. So you get in the queue, and which in other words, you book months in advance to get access to that aircraft. And then they load it up with everything that they need, and you fly for maybe 2.5 hours, and then you have to find a place to land to refuel. And where do you land and refuel? Well, you better put a fuel cache in somewhere along the line so that you can actually refuel somewhere. So where we started out, we were about 6 hours of flying out of Resolute just to get to the location where we started. So it's a huge commitment. I mean, that flight there, that's a $50,000, $60,000 flight just one way to get up there, for the five of us.
Some perspective, I was living in New Zealand at the time. It took as long to get from Wellington, New Zealand, where I lived, to Ottawa, Canada, as it did to get to Ottawa, to the place where we put in the kayaks.
Wow.
That is extraordinary. And then you're arriving and preparing for possibly encountering polar bears and all manner of outside forces.
You have to have everything with you, that's for sure. You have to be completely self-sufficient. And the other thing is the plane is making that flight on spec, because there's no one on the ground there to tell you what the conditions are like up there. So, you get in the plane, you fly for 5-6 hours, and then what happens if the fog rolls in the meantime, and there you are circling around. And that's kind of what happened to us at the end, is that the plane flew all that ways up there to pick us up and couldn't land. So that was the last piece of drama that we had.
And Chris was trying to figure out why he left the city.
I was just going to say, Chris was like, this was a great idea.
The first moment when the plane flew away, I realized just how isolating it really is up there. I mean,
Which movie did you think of when that happened?
when the plane flew away?
Yeah, were you thinking, oh, this is exactly like the scene from...
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I had anything to compare it to in my mind.
What does it remind you of, Sue?
It reminds me of the Yellow Jackets, the series of, when the planes keep not coming to get them. So, yeah, I'm horrified. I'm scared. But you're here, so it's obviously a good thing. I want to talk a little bit about the filmmaking, because you have to bring your equipment with you. As you said, everything in plan to be there. What did you use? Was there drones that you used? And when did you decide, we love to shoot in the movie and television business and get as much as you can because we don't have to carry film canisters anymore, but you're also using your valuable human energy, your battery energy, you're doing research. Talk a little bit about the filmmaking process.
Well, everybody has a camera, for starters. Make sure that everyone has a camera and that people are getting the idea that you pick up that camera and you use it. So that's really important. And then good audio is really, really important. So we spent a lot of time working on getting good audio. And then as far as the camera gear itself, we had like one sort of production quality camera that we used, and that was kept in a waterproof box on the deck of the kayak, and whenever we could pull that out and use it, we would. But for the most part, we used waterproof cameras that we didn't have to worry about in storms and with waves or whatever. So.
And you spent some time in the film talking about what you're seeing, which by consequence, of course, we're seeing in the film. What does it mean to be able to show people what you were able to observe, photographs that have not been taken, because this kind of technology, with this kind of resolution, with drone technology, can get the bird's eye view, has not been out there for public consumption before.
Yeah, I think it's really, from a scientific perspective, it's extremely exciting to be able to get this high resolution, small scale, videography and photographs, but it's also really helpful in telling the story of the Arctic, I think. It comes across in the film, and I think it came across to me as let's say a layperson going to the Arctic, that the things you see in person when you're there are very different from what you expect, when this isn't the place that you consider every day. And it's not. Why would we? It's hot outside, and it's the summer here in Boston. So I think it's a really powerful tool to be able to actually show what's changing and how it's changing.
What do you want the message to be if folks, when they watch tonight at 6 p.m. on 44, what are you hoping the message will be, one or two things that people take away from it?
Well, I think the number one thing is this is the Arctic, right? So the Arctic is like a distant place, and we're talking about a distant problem in a distant place. It's really hard to kind of make that something important, in the sense, right, in your own mind. But in fact, this idea of an ocean that an entire ocean that in the space of a few decades has gone from being ice covered, and not only just ice covered, but ice covered with such a thickness of ice that people could not imagine that ice would disappear in this century. And the ice has been disappearing. We've lost 3/4 of the ice volume or more of the ice volume in the Arctic Ocean in the last couple of decades. So it's really changing fast. And really what it comes down to when you talk about Arctic change, this is a part of the world where the changing ocean is really at the center of it all. So as the Arctic warms, the ocean loses more and more ice, gets less ice covered, and that impacts on everything. It impacts on the wildlife locally, it impacts on the weather in the north, but more than anything, it also gets back to this loss of reflectivity. There's very little on this planet that's actually reflecting incoming solar radiation. Very little. Mostly what comes in, from the sun, with the exception of reflecting off of clouds, gets absorbed by the Earth. So it's really important to have these reflective surfaces, and we're losing them.
Well, it has been great to speak with you both. Thank you for what you've done, what you put yourselves through. People can understand more of the journey when they watch your film tonight. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks a lot.
We've been speaking with filmmaker and Arctic expedition leader Stephen Smith and Chris Horvat, a polar oceanographer at Brown University. Their documentary, Beneath the Polar Sun, airs tonight at 6 on GBH 44. Well, coming up after this quick break, we're ending the week with you. I'm Jared Bowen. She's Sue O'Connell. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Trump administration has been scrutinizing colleges for anti-Semitism. Some students worry that conflates criticism of Israel with their everyday concerns.
If you meet a Jewish student at a party, the first thing out of your mouth after you find out that they're Jewish cannot be, "What do you think about Israel?"
I'm Elsa Chang, how the government defines anti-Semitism on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And MIT Federal Credit Union, with a full range of financial services. Their financial advisors are committed to helping members' money work for them. Membership's open to the public. More at mitfcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA.
All right, welcome back to hour number 3 of BPR. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell, in for Jim, I think, or maybe Margery. I don't know. Jared Bowen is here, I think, in for me, who was in for Margery. But we're
All
here.
I know is I'm in our half hour of BPR.
You're right, and it's at the BPL right now, streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. All right, a final reminder. I'm not saying it again, although I'm sure I will. No live BPR shows next week. Jim and Margery and the entire crew are on vacation, kind of like a White Lotus experience.
Is that what they're doing?
I think they're all going to go on a boat somewhere together. So GBH is going to be...
Jamie is shaking his head no.
Re-airing... 10 will go, 9 will return. Re-airing some stellar stuff, so they'll be back live on August 18th and back at the BPL on August 19th. You, of course.
The Culture Show is on all next week, and we'll be here at the library next Friday live at the studio.
Okay, so we're ending this vacation week here talking about Crocs. Not crocodiles, you might think, after playing off the last segment, but the much talked about, much beloved, very controversial rubber clog, the Crocs. Apparently, the stock is down nearly 30% after the company warned of falling sales and pressure from Trump's tariffs. So now the big question is, are Crocs over? Is the fall of the comfy clog empire done, or is this just a temporary blip? We want to hear from you. The number to call or text is 877-301-8970. Jared, you may be wondering why we are talking about this, because just last week, I got my very first pair of Crocs, and they are the best, most comfortable thing I have ever worn in my entire life.
So you had never worn Crocs before?
I thought they were ugly. I mocked people, even when I saw nurses or first responders wearing them, and I thought, these are ugly. And now I would have them on today, but I'm not quite that comfortable. So we're asking you, what's your relationship with Crocs? Do you see them and shudder thinking, why are these people wearing these shoes? Why aren't they dressing? Do you swear by them? We want to hear from you. Call or text 877-301-8970.
I think we have sound of you in your brand new Crocs.
Let's listen.
That's Sue O'Connell in her brand new Crocs, walking very gingerly so that you can adapt to them.
If you're going to go in the pond or the lake like I did, and it's a little mucky at the bottom, you can wear your Crocs. You can put the little strap on. You can float around. You can also then just take them right off and wear them right into the house.
I think we need a little context. So how did you come by your new Crocs?
So I was vacationing with my friends in Camden at their little place.
That's right. I remember you were heading off there.
Yep. And they, they're such wonderful people. They leave gift bags for their guests who are coming to freeload with them. So
you're showing up to their house, where normally somebody might bring a housewarming or house hostess gift or host gift.
Correct. I did
and
not.
instead, you had a gift waiting for you in your bedroom.
Yeah, so I had some lovely popcorn as well as these lovely Crocs. So I mocked them and put them on and then never took them off. I also left without buying them dinner. So that's the kind of freeloader I am. But I will be invited back next year.
Well, let me back up. Is this a new thing that not only, we'll talk about the Crocs, but this is a new thing that you're expected to arrive and find a gift waiting for you when you're freeloading at someone's home?
Yes.
Okay, so we can talk about that
folks.
too.
Yes, but the Crocs. Do you have Crocs? Have you worn Crocs?
I have never worn Crocs.
No, not even with the little tchotchke things that you can put inside them?
I do kind of find those adorable, especially for the kids who are wearing them. Maybe less so for the adults.
Okay.
But yeah, you can buy your Croc jewelry to decorate and all manner of things. But Crocs aren't doing very well right now. They're down about 30%.
But it's not their fault.
And Croc is saying that this is because of the tariffs.
Yeah, of course, because things come into the country and things go out of the country. This is how things are going to go. My beloved Crocs that I just discovered are already a victim of the Trump's tariffs. We've got a texter here, retired nurse. You know, I spent a lot of time in the emergency room, so I see a lot of Crocs. She says, at one time I loved Crocs on the job, comfy, easy to clean, and inexpensive. However, I gave them up after working a night shift. When maintenance wasn't available and the toilet overflowed and I had to wade through the overflow to shut the water off. Yuck. So that would be
awful.
a problem, but you could easily clean them as well if you had to wear them
Yeah, but they're
again.
filled with holes, which means that we don't need
but she
to
loved them
realize the full
otherwise.
visual there.
All right, let's go to the phones. Donna is calling from Rhode Island. Donna, what's your take on Crocs?
Hi, Donna.
Hi. I agree with you about your thinking that they weren't attractive, because that was my thought. But there's a whole line of Crocs that have very attractive shoes, at least for women. And I have some wedge sandals that are Croc and some flats that are almost like ballet flats. But the traditional ones, I'm not so hot on either.
Yeah, no, I'm not. In fact, I kind of follow the wisdom of Victoria Beckham, who had said I would rather die than wear Crocs. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they're just kind of big, giant hobbit shoes.
They're very comfortable. That's the point. That especially if you're at the beach or at the lake, the holes are helpful to keep your feet cool, and they've got those little bumps. There's something that they're made out of. I don't know if you know, Donna, what they're made out of, but it's a very particular type of plastic. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a very specified type of plastic, and I worked for a hospital system for years, and they really are a favorite of a lot of, nurses and other, people who do X-ray or whatever. They're on their feet a long time, and they have some that have the snap-in kind that make them like slippers in the winter. So they're very versatile. But I'm sad to hear that there's a tariff on these.
Yeah,
kind of silly.
Tariff on everything, Donna. Get used to it. I hate to tell you.
And I was looking them up. They're not as inexpensive as I thought they would be. I mean, they're
No.
basically made out of packing
50
foam,
plus.
and yet they're $30 to $60.
Yes, they're not cheap.
And then the little jewels are $20 or something like that.
All right, Donna, thanks for calling. A reminder to our audience, we're talking about all things Crocs, 877-301-8970. Here's an anonymous hater. I hope they are over. Those stupid things are dangerous. I can't tell you how many times I slipped on wet grass in them. I only use them to take the dogs out. All right, so, you can slip on wet grass on a lot of things.
There's some piling on going here. Lisa from Winchester Tech saying that as a former preschool director, I banned Crocs for children. They are so dangerous because children can trip so easily when running. In my humble opinion, they should be only used for pools, beaches, or boats.
That's what I was doing.
You're not wearing yours right now.
No, I don't want to be mocked yet. No. So I wasn't ready and feeling brave to wear them. Let's talk to Manda, I believe, in Norwell. Manda, welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Hi there.
Hi, guys. I can't even believe this is the first time I'm calling this show. But
Wait, you can't believe it because you managed to not get either host? Is that the reason?
Yeah, or that this is the
my
reason
God.
that finally drove you to call is the Crocs.
Yes, I actually got through. So I totally get why people, have a disdain for Crocs. I get it. They're not the most flattering looking shoe. But if you did not know, they have different styles for women, maybe for men too, but they have a very cute Katie Croc shoe, so it doesn't have the strap. It's actually a Croc flat. You can go from like day to night at the beach or whatnot.
Day to night. Day to night Crocs. I love it.
Day to night Crocs. But I have 3 kids. They're very versatile. But just for anyone out there that's on the verge of wondering about Crocs, there's many different styles than the traditional strap Crocs.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, because right here at the studio we have Molly, the nurse, who is here, and she's standing behind us and is wearing what she calls cute nurse Crocs that look like. She's waving now. They look like Birkenstocks, basically.
Yes,
they're like
the new trendy Birkenstocks.
Yeah. So are they the same material and everything?
They're soft as the traditional Crocs. She won't be caught dead in the traditional Crocs. So there is some hierarchy here.
Yeah,
I love them.
They look great.
I think I'm going to get them. Okay.
Yeah,
Except for the tariff situation. Now they're going to be $75. So look at, they even have some stylish ones here. All right, an anonymous texter. Thank you, Amanda, for calling. I absolutely love my Crocs. I keep 2 pair that my wife has in Costa Rica, and I have 2 pair at my house in New Hampshire. I never leave the country without them. You know what? Jim was concerned that Americans were not reacting to the tariff situation strongly enough, and we're not really clear on how it's going to impact us. This could be it. This could be the tipping point for America. People rebelling against the cost of Crocs going up because of Trump's tariff taxes.
And you can weigh in at 877-301-8970 to call or text. Again, 877-301-8970 to call or text about Crocs, or this new visiting trend of making sure you have a gift bag for your house guests for the weekend.
Well,
what else was in the gift bag?
Well, there was some popcorn, and there was a lovely Maine canvas bag that came along with them, and a handwritten card welcoming us to the stay.
No.
Now, yes. Now, growing up as a young...
Are these people you knew well?
Yes, they're my best friends, but they do it for everybody.
Oh.
So, but, growing up as a young adult, Jared, not having grown up where people summer or have camps or stuff, I learned everything I need to know about bringing house gifts from the movie 6 Degrees of Separation with Will Smith. Do you recall it?
I recall it.
Here is Will Smith and Anthony Michael Hall talking about bringing gifts to people, especially rich people, when you go visit them.
It got to be rough to be with rich people. Got to have money. You got to be buying them presents and everything all the time.
Not at all. I mean, rich people do something nice for you. You give them a pot of jam.
That's what pots of jam is for?
Orange, grapefruit, strawberry. But fancy. And they have entire stores filled with fancy pots of jam wrapped in cloth.
So you're going to do that for your friends?
Yeah, I'll give them a pot of jam. They'll have a great time. Okay, let's go to Kristen in Shrewsbury. Kristen, we are talking about all things Crocs, tariffs, and gifts when you're freeloading on someone's vacation. What's on your mind?
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Oh, my God. This is the best news I've heard. All I can think of is Idiocracy, where Crocs are supposed to be the symbol of the most unintelligent people.
In the movie Idiocracy.
I get it that in the movie, in the movie Idiocracy. And it just, when I see people, and I know everybody says they're comfortable, I get that, but there are comfortable shoes that are not Crocs. And when I see people in them, all I can think of is, I think Idiocracy. I really do.
Well, Kristen, I will say, I've
never worn a pair. I will never own a pair.
You should try to wear them. As someone who watched Idiocracy, and I have been mocking Crocs. I've also old enough to have worn the Earth shoe. Anybody remember the Earth shoe? Raise your hand.
Oh,
yes, that was an ugly shoe.
My sister had a pair of Earth shoes.
Yeah, the
I'll
Earth.
point out everybody who just raised their hand also hung their head in shame.
Yeah,
like
the
this gentleman in the front row.
The Earth shoe had a lower heel, and it was supposed to be helpful, like you were walking the way humans were meant to walk on the Earth. So I had the Earth shoe. I've had clogs. I will say what the
Dr. Scholl's.
Dr. Scholl's, yes. I've had the old ugly Birkenstock. Now you go to Bloomingdale's and Birkenstocks are like $250 as opposed to the original, the Teva. I've been a fan of the Tevas. The Crocs I didn't wear. The thing about the Crocs is you can wash them off very quickly. You can wear them inside out. Well, if you're in the mud, you're out in the lake, you're on the boat.
You are somebody who, if we were to ask you this 4 weeks ago, you would have been just tearing them apart. And now you know every last little thing about Crocs. I think you're giving up. I think we have to have a little intervention.
I'm going to take out my my Earth shoe and I'm going to put it somewhere, Jared. Thank you, Kristen, for weighing in. We appreciate this. According to Snopes.com, where we get all of our fact-checking done, Idiocracy had everyone in the movie wearing Crocs because the costume designer had a limited budget and because they were too ugly to ever become popular in real life. Well, now if they were to make that movie today because of the tariffs, they wouldn't be able to afford the Crocs, and everybody is indeed wearing them in real life. So there you go.
Yeah, they should have bought stock as they were setting cultural trends, cultural fashion trends. What do we think Anna Wintour thinks of Crocs? I don't think you're ever going to see her wearing Crocs.
Well, that would be something. I think I would look forward to that. Let's go to Patricia in Holden. Hello, Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
Welcome to BPR.
Hello. I'm telling you, I love my Crocs so big time. I have about 5 pairs of them, and I buy them all online, and they're not the old-fashioned kind where they have gibbets in the top of them to decorate them.
Mm-hmm.
I have bad feet. I wear a platform style, and I'm telling you, I can stay in these all day long, whereas before I was always rubbing my feet or whatever. And my podiatrist, whom I saw recently, told me that the Crocs I was wearing were excellent for my issues.
Patricia, where do you wear them? Are you out? You know, what are you doing? You gardening? You going to the store? You working? What?
Everything.
Everything.
They're the only shoes I wear.
See?
And if it's cold, I wear ankle socks.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
And you know, that's very fashionable. I mean, I'm 77 years old, and I love these things.
Crocs and ankle socks, and no giblets or giblets or whatever you say.
They're called.
No, I don't wear that style of shoe that they make.
Oh, okay.
And they're not made out of rubber. They're made out of some other kind of vinyl fabric. And yes, they're very easy to take care of. Just take a cloth and wipe them over. Maybe have a magic eraser for a stubborn spot, and they go right away.
All right, Patricia.
All right, Patricia, thank you very much.
Selling. I'm also fascinated by the fact that they're all odor-free, which means they're made out of some mysterious, magical material that does no harm to your body whatsoever.
Well,
if it can
that
be
that
cleaned
horse
with a
is
magic
left,
eraser.
That horse is left. Yeah, but the rubber, plastic, foam, whatever, it is very comfy when you're standing in them, and then they've got other little elements to it. Let's ask Ellen in Maine, where I first discovered the lovely Croc experience. Ellen, what's on your mind?
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, I'm just calling because I'm a school nurse. I've worked in elementary schools for many years, and I do think that they could be really appropriate for adults who have options to make other decisions, but for children, they're like, I look at them on the stairs and the playgrounds, they're an accident waiting to happen. These kids slip out of them, they get wet, their socks are wet, they have to come to the nurse's office because so it's just they're not really the greatest shoes for kids. If you're an adult, wonderful. If they're kids, they're convenient, but they're really an accident waiting to happen.
Well, I'll weigh in as
experience.
Jim Browdy today and say we should probably just ban Crocs for children under 13.
We can just add it to the cell phone ban in
that
schools.
Would be the list
Crocs
of things
ban,
that Jim
cell
would want
phone
to do
bans.
to ban them, so they'd be fine. So thank you, Ellen, for calling.
Ellen will deal with it in Maine. The rest of it will get dealt with in Massachusetts.
Yes.
We've had 2 nurses now say that
For
Crocs
kids.
are hazardous
For
to your
kids.
health.
For kids.
To your health,
Listen,
Sue.
everything a kid does is hazardous to their health, okay? All right? They're running up and down stairs. The Velcro, we put Velcro sneakers on them, then they can't tie. All right? What have we done for them, right?
How many
Nothing.
stitches did you have as a child?
I had a lot. I had my chin broken open sledding.
Yeah.
My dad let me play with a switchblade and cut my finger off. You know.
But it's still
true.
there.
It's still well. It was it's pretty deep. None of us were wearing Crocs when those accidents happened.
That's
so
true.
I just want to point that out.
I had a horrible fight with a coffee table once, and that's why I had the scar up and off of my head. Yeah, kids are dangerous.
So we've got a point here, which I was making earlier. If you put them in sport mode, which is when you take the strap on it, so there's 2 things you can do with the strap on the top, or you can put it in like a traditional clog.
I cannot believe the level of detail you know.
Well, when you're floating in a lovely lake in Maine and they start floating off your feet, you realize you have to put the strap on them.
Okay, again, let me help you. You're talking about the architectural engineering of the Croc right now.
Right, I'm trying to save America.
Are you hearing
here.
yourself?
Jared, I'm trying to save America. It's definitely. So anyway, you can put them in sport mode, so if you're running with them on, you won't fall, okay? All right, so let's see. Oh, look, an
So,
anonymous
yeah.
texter. A friend of mine has run several marathons in Crocs. They're clearly an insane person.
Yeah,
so
I don't know
there's
how
that
you could
going
do that.
on. Yes, that would
And
be
another
hard.
anonymous texter is saying, gay men who wear Crocs, are they even actually gay?
That's a good question.
Wow.
We'll have
That got a good response here at the library.
See, because you know what the truth is? If there's 5 gay guys wearing Crocs, suddenly they're cool again.
And that's a
right?
trend.
That's a trend.
That's a
so we're
trend.
going to have to open the phone line without getting a lawsuit going specifically to gay men wearing Crocs. 877-301-8970 is, of course, our phone number to call or text.
Well, here's a helpful hint from Amanda in Norwell. You can put them in the dishwasher as well.
You can.
I love clothes that you
Listen,
can put in a dishwasher.
I am wearing Rothy's right now. Do you know about Rothy's? Do you know about Rothy's? Rothy's are a shoe made from plastic. They're recycled plastic, and they come. You can
like
also
milk bottles or something like that?
yeah, and they come in a variety of.
There's
I
still
don't
a
get
hood
paid for
label
any
on
of
yours.
these. And you can put them in the washer machine. So we're moving to a world, Jared, where we could just wash all of our shoes in the dishwasher or the washer machine.
Again, I think this is giving up.
Not giving up. Okay, and another anonymous texter. Crocs seem okay. Crocs with socks, that's where I would draw the line. You know, this opens up the other part of the discussion about socks with sandals, Jared.
Now we're just entering Dr. Seuss territory,
Yeah.
Crocs with socks.
Yeah, do you ever wear socks with sandals?
No.
No, good
No.
job.
No. Good job. Again, our number is 877-301-8970. Nobody's calling about this whole, what I thought was fascinating, the gift bag when you arrive at your friend's house.
Yes, so I arrive at our friend's house, and they left us a gift bag for staying with them for our free vacation at their summer
And you arrived
place.
with nothing.
I arrived with nothing. My daughter. So, yes.
And
we
how long
arrived.
have you
And
had
my
these
dog.
friends?
42 years.
So you're
it's-
kind of at the point where you can do that.
Yeah. So, and there was
Do they come to your house?
No, I don't have a house. I also don't have a summer house or a winter house, so I can't
Because
give
you don't
back.
summer.
I can't. Right. So we got a lovely gift bag, each with Crocs and popcorn, and a lovely Maine canvas bag. I did attempt to take them out to dinner to pay them back at some point, but I had lost my ATM card, so
that
it
old
was,
excuse.
and
I'll
I
just
dropped
Venmo you when I
and
get
I
home.
dropped my phone in the water, so I couldn't even Venmo them anything.
Did you
so,
really?
Yeah, right now I'm ahead by quite a bit.
Okay.
I got Crocs, I got a bag, and I got a free dinner.
All
And a
right.
free vacation.
Well, let's go to Ryan in Quincy. Hi, Ryan.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Well, one of us is doing okay.
You guys have sounded increasingly more defeated over the course of this segment, so I don't really blame you.
Defeated?
I'm calling. I'm a recover. Yeah, defeated. I'm a recovering Croc wearer, right? Just got rid of my first pair of Crocs. I'll never wear them again. People used to walk around with bare feet all the time. I'm all in on wearing bare feet.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to pay money for bare feet. You don't wash them at the end of the day. You walk around. You can get your dirt in between your toes. It's so much better than wearing Crocs.
So what's your shoe of choice, Ryan? It sounds like you may not have a shoe of choice, but what's your shoe of choice?
My shoe of choice?
Yeah. Sneaker, clogs.
Clogs. I'm sandals in the summer. I do like a Tiva type thing in the summer if I'm going out and about. And then I'm boots in the winter.
Okay.
So wait, did you tell us why you're recovering? What's the recovering part of
And
all
who
of this?
forced you to wear them?
I thought it was going to be good. I thought it was going to be an easy thing to wear, simple, run out to the garden, run out to go get the mail, you put Crocs on. But you start to lose your sense of self when you wear Crocs.
Maybe that's what happened to me.
And you can't really run either.
Yeah. Well, you can run if you put them in sport mode. If you put the strap on the back, it's sport mode. All right, Ryan.
You don't need to put bare feet in sport mode.
That's very true. That's a good point. Ryan, good luck on your recovery. We are praying for you and hoping that you resumed your barefooting as you have said. And Marshall from Boston. Marshall, thank you for joining us on this very special edition of Boston Public Radio, where we are talking defeatedly, apparently, about Crocs.
I started off defeated, just to be clear. Marshall, hi.
Happy Croc Day.
Thank you. Oh, it's a national day.
It's a national day now. Yeah, I really love Crocs. I think they're really cool. They're comfortable. They're all those things. I used to dance. I used to be a dancer. But it should come with a warning. If you have bad feet or there's something that's really, you should be very careful about your Crocs. If you wear them out and you get something stuck in the bottom of your Croc, it could really hurt your foot. And I'm a true witness to that. So I had a scar that I had to go to the hospital for because I got infected. And so, just be careful. Be fun, but be careful.
Okay. Good warning, Marshall. I think that's...
Beware of worn-out Crocs.
Yes, any worn-out shoe is a bad shoe. But thank you, Marshall. That's a tepid endorsement with a warning that came along with it.
Is this giving you any level of reservation whatsoever?
No, I'm going to start wearing them more now. I'm going to wear them every day.
You're leaning even further in.
We have an anonymous texter who's weighing in on the gay issue. As a gay man and a proud Croc owner, I can tell you it has way more to do with having children than anything else. Plus, I prefer my Keens. That is true. There is a certain giving up you do when you become a parent. And Crocs might be one of those examples.
You just have to have the nearest thing that you can slip into, which I think can be any number of. You can slip into sneakers. Let me just say that.
You can't slip
yes,
into
you
sneakers,
can slip
Jared.
into
You
sneakers.
cannot slip in. How do you slip into sneakers? You have to untie them. You have to unfelt.
If you just tie them in the perfect kind of way.
All right, Virginia from Sharon.
Or the Velcro that you talked about earlier.
Virginia from Sharon, thank you for calling us on Boston Public Radio. We're really talking about tariffs, but we're doing it pretending to talk about Crocs.
Hi, Virginia.
Oh, hello. Surprise, surprise.
Okay, this is the part where you talk.
Never wanted a Croc until you talked about Crocs.
And so.
Okay, short version. I am a retired nurse, agreeing 100% with all of the retired nurses that have already talked to you, but we know what we're talking about.
Indeed.
Secondly, I have terribly bad feet, as one other person said. Wide, deep toe box, very narrow heel. Nothing solved it like Crocs did. I come in, I try wearing sandals. I haven't got the nerve to wear them out yet. I'm getting there. But I live in them all day, anytime I'm home. There's just nothing like them. And yes, they're ugly. I know they are. But
so Virginia, don't wear them outside.
It's a pro Croc. It's pro Croc.
Inside shoes.
One of the benefits is becoming 83 years old.
She doesn't care. There you go.
Yeah,
See, all right, Virginia, congratulations on your Crocness. This is. I don't know what else. This
and
is.
by the way, she was a retired nurse, so that was one nurse for. And
but listen,
800 against.
You know we spend a lot of time in my hospital at the emergency room. There are a lot of Crocs on the feet of the nurses in the emergency room and doctors. So next time you're in the emergency room, don't look up, look down, and look who's here looking over here.
Edgar's here.
Hi.
Edgar's,
do you have Crocs?
I do not have Crocs.
Do you want Crocs?
I do not want Crocs. What are Crocs?
Oh my gosh!
No,
well,
I'm kidding. No, I don't. Yeah, I know. Well, the tariffs and the Crocs. Did we poll the crowd here at the library about their thoughts on Crocs?
We polled about Earth shoes, but we didn't make it to Crocs.
How many wear Crocs? You wear Crocs? Raise your hand.
Nobody raised their hand.
Right, how many are against Crocs? Like against them?
How many don't have an opinion on Crocs?
About
it's about sort of even. We're sort of even.
One third. Yeah.
One third. So Crocs.
What's coming up on the Culture Show?
Well, we're going to talk about Crocs. Jared's going to be. We can ask Jared what's going to happen on the Culture.
You can talk about
it. Well, have you heard of artificial intelligence?
I have.
Yeah, AI. So AI, obviously a big deal, and something we talk about on the Culture Show a lot, but. It seems like there's something new every week with AI, and this week a movie in India was re-released in theaters, but they altered the end of the film using AI. So they changed it essentially from a sad ending to a happy ending. That's really the first time that has happened, and we're going to kind of bat that around. Is it a signal shot? Is it a one-off? Who knows? We're going to look at some Broadway stuff, some controversy on Broadway with recasting, as well as Hamilton is 10 years old. Can you believe that?
That is, you cannot believe that, actually.
I know.
And in some respect, I don't want to start talking about too much about what we're about to talk about in a couple of minutes, but in some respect, it feels like it just opened. In another respect, it feels like it's been part of the musical canon forever. I'm going to stop talking because these are things that I would say on the Culture Show.
There you go.
Gonna say,
so those are just a couple things, and then we should definitely tune in. There's going to be much more than that. Okay. And the only way to know about all of it is to stay tuned in.
Crocs or not Crocs? You can still tune in.
We are Croc agnostic on the Culture Show.
Well, that's one of us on the Culture Show.
Thank you, Edgar. We appreciate that. Reminding folks who are listening that I said I wouldn't say it again, but I will, that BPR will be on vacation next week. We'll have some best of shows that we are airing, so we will not be live from the library. The Culture Show will continue carrying the burden, and we'll be live here on Friday of next week, correct?
That is correct. Well, this has been fun to hop into for this last hour of Boston Public Radio. Thanks for listening to another edition of BPR, and thanks to everyone who came down to see the show at the BPL studio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of the podcast, or check out the TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tune in Monday for the start of a week of Best of Conversations with Dr. Sarah Fortune, author Juliet Schor on the viability of the 4-day work week, singer Debo Ray, the Globe's Odie Henderson, and Christopher Muther, and former partner of John Lennon, May Pang. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Connolly, Nicole Garcia, and Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks today to the BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Eddie Hickey, and Elena Gonzalez. Today is Elena's last day with us. She's been great, and we wish her the best. Yes, this goes out to you. Thanks, too, to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lennox Hotel. Stay tuned. The Culture Show is about to get underway in just about a minute or so for our Week in Review edition. It starts immediately after BPR. I'm Jared Bowen.
And I'm Sue O'Connell. Have a great week.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Foundation for Chinese Performing Arts, presenting a series of concerts at NEC through August 23rd. August 16th is the Fao Zong International Concerto Competition. Details at ChinesePerformingArts.net. Anytime you're looking for a snapshot of history, a window into the past, or the perfect partner in crime, GBH has you covered. Find all your favorite GBH shows streaming now on the PBS app.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, Versailles meets AI. The statues at the 17th century palace have come alive. By scanning a QR code, visitors can now have an interactive experience with the likes of Cupid and Apollo.
Bonjour, je suis Apollon. Quelle est ta question? Bonjour, je suis le Rhône.
Que désires-tu savoir sur moi?
Dans les jardins de Versailles.
Speaking of history coming alive, it's been 10 years since Hamilton bounded onto Broadway, a groundbreaking musical with a multiracial cast playing the Founding Fathers, who sang and rapped. So, what's next?
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Hamilton the movie. And with The Great Gatsby marking its 100th birthday, we endeavored to decode the book's mysterious cover. Try as we might, can we ever truly know The Great Gatsby?
Who is this Gatsby?
He was a German spy during the war.
German spy?
No. He's the Kaiser's assassin.
I heard he killed a man once.
It's true. Killed for fun, free of charge. He's certainly richer than God.
If you think Steve Martin doesn't give a frick about art,
remember how I always wanted a rotating bed with pink chiffon and zebra stripes?
think again. The Only Murders in the Building Star has turned Only Masterpieces in the Building Star, working with the Frick Collection in New York to celebrate the museum's grand reopening on Fifth Avenue.
Consider what you or I might be drawn to on any given day at the Frick Collection. Maybe it's a gilded beard or a velvet sleeve. or a white daub of paint that brings a 400-year-old artist back to life.
And the Iceman cometh. The Department of Homeland Security is using an image from South Park to recruit ICE enforcement agents. And South Park is striking back with more satire.
What makes you want to work for immigration enforcement?
Well, you see, I got a nut.
All right, you're hired. Take this to the next station for your physical and orientation video.
Well, that's it?
We take on that and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
How much I wanted an all-red billiard room with a giant stuffed camel.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Lisa Simmons.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
And we're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with a new meaning to director's cut, as in the movie director has been cut out of the process. The 2013 Bollywood film Ranjana, about ill-fated love, ended in death. Now, though, it has been re-released with a different happy ending, all thanks to the magic of AI. So we have been, of course, talking endlessly because this is our future. It's not the future, it's here. And this is the latest reconciliation I think we have to have, is the profound capability of AI. So essentially what's happened here is the company that owned this film decided that they wanted to remake it and send it back out into the world. It was a story about a Hindu boy in love with a Muslim girl, and this was a complicated relationship, and one of them, spoiler alert, dies at the end, and this company just decided to reconfigure the entire tone, the entire atmosphere, the entire nature of this story by giving it a happy ending. And this has erupted in a huge dispute because the creators behind this, including one of the actors, say they were not consulted. The company is saying they did consult them. That's less of the issue here, but the issue is so much can be done, including taking one's project and one's performance and entirely changing it with AI.
I mean, okay, so they've been doing this with writers for a long time, right? That you write something, someone buys it, and they make a completely different story. So it's this whole issue about authorship. But this is different. This is an actual piece. This is an actual film, a full film that the director had every intention, and all the intentions were in there the way it was written, and the ending and everything. So, I mean, as a film person, as a director, I would be heartbroken as well. Your whole idea of what you thought this movie was going to be about is no longer. What's I think really problematic, though, is that the company Eros is like, well, it's technology, and this is what we're going to do, and it allows us, so we're going to keep doing it. They own 3,000 more pieces that they're sort of like, well, we can do the same thing, and it really, it's this balance, right? It is this balance between, you know, someone's ownership and authorship of something and the ability of AI to change things and change narratives. And I know we're going to be talking more about that on the show today. But it really is, it is problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably, I sort of separate out the what is happening and the how it's happening. And I think we need to do that, especially when it comes to AI. The what is happening here, the fact that it is happening, that technology is being used this way, that kind of comes with one set of potential problems, but also a set of potential new ways of being creative. I mean, I think about, it seems to me like right now, the movie industry is a little bit more like music, right? So, you know, there was a time in the music industry when people didn't realize, you know, if I'm an artist, I should also make sure I have the publishing rights, and also make sure I own the master tapes, and also make sure I own every track, because if I don't, somebody's going to take it and do something else with it, right? And that's a little bit what's happening here. That also, some musicians have decided in the world of technology to make those things available to people, to be creative and remix my song how you want it, but they're choosing to do it. And that's where we get into the how it's happening here thing.
Right.
The how it's happening I have a problem with, because the people who were involved in the making of this movie don't seem to be on board with what's happening by the film studio.
And this was 2013. Who
Yes.
knew to write into their contract
Exactly.
that you don't have the ability to take a technology I don't even know exists yet and change it?
Right.
And maybe there is some sort of legalese that can be put in contracts that reflect artistic intent, and how that can be preserved, probably not. So this is going to have to be re-examined too. So we're talking about a Bollywood film here, but imagine if the Walt Disney Company decides to go back and Bambi is too traumatic, so her mother doesn't die at the beginning of the film.
All of those Disney movies. movies are
Yeah,
traumatic.
well, yes, because there was something against
are.
mother in all of them. But look at
Right.
if you start to track our changing mores in society, and rather than think of these individual pieces as a piece in time, and suddenly make it a piece for our present moment,
Right.
and then you completely change the context without somebody knowing that there was a Bambi that existed where she went through this trauma at the beginning of her life. This is, I think, what we're facing right now.
I mean, I think that, and we're already seeing that in Hollywood, right? We're seeing voice dubbing, we're seeing visual effects editing, and we're seeing, so it's like little by little it's creeping in. But you're right, it's changing the absolute narrative and that storyline, and whose responsibility is that? You know, Final Cut is Final Cut, is so everyone thought. And now,
but that's not where we're at, right?
Right.
And again, I think you got to look at there is the potential for this stuff to be used well, used creatively. Again, to make a music analogy, think about that the love thing that they did with Cirque du Soleil with
Yes.
Beatles music, where they took all of these individual tracks from Beatles music, remixed them, reimagined them to completely different works of art. They did that with the okay of the,
well,
the
that's
Beatles
it, is having
people.
that okay
So-
from other people saying, we want
Exactly.
to try this. What do you think about that? They're going to say.
But it's still the intention of the song and the sense of the song is
Is
still at
valid.
the heart of something like
I think
that
so.
Cirque du Soleil
I think
show.
that's
Whereas
right.
this, you're just outright changing the whole tenor of the piece.
Well, and I think you bringing up Disney is an important thing, right? Because I think you are going to see these studios that have a lot of intellectual property looking back through their back catalogs and mining all of this for new ways of putting these things out. I mean, it does raise the question of, like, what of the sacred texts that we have in our arts and culture are sacred texts, and what can we play around
Well, it's also
with?
this whole conversation about changing history. Like you were saying, Jared, it's all this conversation about there is a whole generation that's not going to know about this other piece, and they're going to look at this and be like, oh, isn't this a wonderful love story? But that's not what the original intent was.
Can you imagine them going back to change It's a Wonderful Life? and let's also be mindful, do we really think this is about artistic intent, or
No.
is this
No,
just about
it's-
having
it's
a
like-
brand new movie?
I think
and
it's
you-
about money.
all that
Yes,
other box
I
office.
agree with
so
that. But you've raised the point before, Jared, and I think it's an important one. As we move forward, what I would love to see in all of these cases is there be some sort of legal framework that when AI is utilized, it is somehow transparent that it has been utilized, because you really get into danger when you're doing it and trying to sneak it in without telling anybody.
And
you're
I think
doing
that that's what we're moving to.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Especially when as we talked about before, when it comes to awards.
Yes.
Well, if you find statues a little too impenetrable for your taste, France's Palace of Versailles is using AI to create an interactive experience. Visitors can now use an app and scan a QR code to engage with the likes of Cupid or a Sphinx. A New York Times reporter recently tried out the app, and here's how Apollo replied when she asked him what happens when a pigeon takes a toilet break.
Profound.
Oh, I thought we were going to have
Wow.
sound from the statue. I was waiting. So I'll translate the French, which is, when pigeons show their affection on my chariot, it's hardly a grand moment, but the caretakers of Versailles are vigilant. They ensure I remain in shining condition, restoring my brilliance after such interruptions, so no lasting harm from those little birds. All right, well, this is different.
First of all, I'm
because-
impressed that you just translated that for French.
Right on the
I know.
on the
Wow.
spot like
Yeah,
that.
it was
We're-
incredible.
But I think that if we're to take our cues from the previous conversation, this is allowing a different way into. This is Edgar's analogy of Cirque du Soleil finding a new way into the Beatles. I think this is technology that allows people to have a different understanding of what these statues might represent. So yes, they can have a cheeky response to pigeon poop, but they can also tell you a little bit more about their context, why they came to Versailles, and maybe who made them, and things of that nature. And this is all by design because they want to bring younger audiences.
I think it's a great. I think it's.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's.
with you.
I
I
really,
love
I really do. I think it's great. I think you're absolutely right. I think that, in the age of media, whether it's TikTok or whatever wherever you're getting your media, museums are sort of suffering that, right? Like, people aren't coming in anymore. They're not engaging anymore. How do we open up museums that are looked at as very historical and sort of like static spaces to bring them to life? And I think that this is an incredible way to do that, where you're not doing anything against the art, you're not changing it, but you're giving it more of an interpretation, and it's accessible as well, right? For accessibility wise, we all know that over the past however many years, we've all looked at how learning changes and people learn differently, and so I think that this gives it gives people that opportunity. I mean, I love the idea, like, right, exactly, that someone asked that question, but I love the one where it said the French teenager asked, "Will I ever be rich?" And he says, becoming rich is an enigma that even a sphinx is unable to solve. She said, the sources of true riches is perhaps love, which subdues all of life. So it's also giving these philosophical things, but it's also, someone said they're talking a lot about themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think it's great. I think it's interactive.
I think it's interactive. I think it's good, and this is one of those things where I think you can get very doom and gloom about what AI is sort of doing to the established sort of arts and culture world as we know it. But it is important to remember that these are tools that can be used in lots of ways looking forward. With this, I sort of think I can imagine myself imagining a future where I want this to go even further, which is to say, it's one thing to be able to scan a QR code on your phone. There sort of feels like something's in between, but if they could really make the statue somehow interactive, that you could just literally talk to it, and there would be a speaker and it would talk back.
And it would
move.
then
I think about, like statues in old cities like Mexico City or in London, and it's night and you amble up to a statue and you talk to it, and it's programmed with
this is
all of the things it's seen over time. I mean, you can imagine really wonderful things with this.
And that's sort of like what Hoverlay does, that company Hoverlay, where you can be on your phone and you can walk around someplace and be like, oh, hi, you're over here, come talk to me. You know what I mean? It's at that point that it's already doing that.
Well, you know what? This is just coincidence, but last night I was speaking with Christine Baranski down at the Newport Mansion.
Okay.
But at the dinner with Christine after, they were talking about the fact that
I'm sorry. Like, there's something missing a segue here. Like we weren't there.
My invite must have gotten lost in the mail. Go anyway.
No, the point of the point is they mentioned that they're going to be introducing holograms and other AI elements into some of the mansions. So because here, it was all here built around the Gilded Age, which is having its season finale. The HBO drama, The Gilded Age, has shot many scenes at Newport Mansions, and so there is a reinvigorated interest in the mansions because people, by way of this series, have an understanding of what life was like, and therefore are kind of entranced by it right now. And they're capitalizing on this by bringing in things like holograms, and I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's an add-on. It's not taking anything away, and there's an engagement here.
And you need to move forward. You need to move into the future and do that whole thing around engagement. I think one of the things too about Versailles is that, the Royal Court of Louis was the ones that brought in medicine, right? Botany, astronomy. He founded the French Academy of Sciences. So you can sort of say,
a forward-looking place by its very nature.
Yes. So here, wouldn't he be like amazed that this AI is happening because this was really?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, he was very much a part of that.
Well, from actual intelligence, now we move to AI actual ink. Using new imaging technology, scientists have been able to decipher and reconstruct the tattoos of an Iron Age Siberian ice mummy. This is a woman, they have determined, who lived 2,000 years ago and had a number of tattoos on her body. And we have an image here. If you're streaming online at our GBH News YouTube channel, if you're here at the library, you'll see it up here on the monitors. But infrared technology is allowing scientists to study these mummies, which have been preserved, as the title implies, in the ice. And having a tattoo sleeve, having tattoos, this is absolutely nothing new. I find this story fascinating. Because people have always decorated themselves.
I find it incredibly fascinating too, Jared, and I think that as we're talking about technology and the digital age, and now, when they first found this mummy, they couldn't see this, right? So they had to go into this 3D infrared kind of process in order to see these, because the
images
we're looking at now. And I think that this is where the technology can be really used for good. I think that what I love about this story too is that they actually consulted tattoo artists now to find out, how long would this be? How long would this have taken? What is this kind of artistry? And many of them were saying that this is amazing. That this kind of work requires so much artistry, and also in health and safety and all these other sort of things. So I think these finds are
this is incredible. And the image that we're looking at now, if you're streaming, or if you're here in the library, this is, as Jared kind of implied, this is like the sleeve. So these images, these tattoos, incredibly, were kind of like all up the arm and the shoulder of this woman. And when you look at them, I have this same reaction when you see a lot of these beautiful cave paintings that we have. There is something in this artistry, that so long ago, I don't know what it is about the way they're drawn. There is something in it that tells you this notion of art and us not just drawing the world that is out there, but there is some interpretation going on here in this from thousands of years ago.
And this is like cultural storytelling.
Yes.
They use their bodies to tell these stories. Well, what's interesting too about this tattoo, this woman, is that this particular tribe that was in these parts of Russia were known for these petroglyph carvings. So that makes total sense that this is what they did on the walls, but they also adorned their bodies with these cultural images of stories.
And this is not the only discovery of its kind. There's one mummy from 5,000 years ago, and scientists have described some of them as a human hard drive, which is, to your point, Lisa, that this is a means of recording history. And 5,000 years ago, it could have been something like maps. Things that needed to be recorded. Sometimes were good, sometimes were bad.
Right.
They would tag prisoners essentially with tattoos they can determine, but other people were doing it. Edgar, as you say, people do it now. People select the language or the imagery that is most important to themselves that would be revealing to somebody who was discover any of us 2,000 years from now.
Exactly. When you see people's sleeves and you see that that's a story that's being told. And I think just one quick thing about that storytelling, it's sort of like also in slave times where, black women used to do their hair and men as a way, as an escape route in doing those braids in their hair. So
well, there's also the
cultural
thing, it makes you grapple with this notion of just how deep in whatever it is, the human psyche, the human experience, that we have this impulse, not just to put images or our name or our mark out in the world, but there is something in the world sometimes that you want to incorporate physically onto you. Like it's fascinating.
And that it's human nature.
Yes.
And this is what I love about these stories, when we realize how people lived and how fundamentally things don't change.
Right, and that we are not new. And this,
we are.
Yeah, we have to understand that there's deep histories that have brought us to this current space.
Well, coming up, robot romance and race relations, how a casting controversy is blanketing Broadway. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Suffolk County Sheriff Stephen Tompkins has been indicted for allegedly using his position to commit extortion. And bringing the Smithsonian to small towns. On this week's JoiBeatz, we spotlight a national exhibit that landed in Ashby, Massachusetts, and a local librarian who helped make it happen. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Gloucester Stage, presenting No Child. During a 6-week acting workshop with uninterested 10th graders, Ms. Sun learns as much as her students in this powerful solo performance. Now through August 23rd. GloucesterStage.com. And Creative Playthings, open for the Massachusetts sales tax holiday August 9th and 10th. Committed to supporting kids' outdoor active play this summer, offering swing sets, trampolines, basketball hoops, and more. CreativePlaythings.com.
GBH 89.7 listeners prefer to purchase from companies that sponsor GBH. Become a corporate sponsor today. Packages can include audio, video, digital, and events. Learn more at gbh.org/sponsorship.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Edgar B. Horwick III and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. She's the artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival and program manager at Mass Cultural Council. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes the Broadway musical Maybe Happy Ending, which we were just hearing some of the music for, and some...
Very jaunty music.
Very jaunty. Well, unfortunately, they have some unhappy casting news. Star Darren Criss is set to depart the show at the end of the month, and news that he'll be replaced with actor Andrew Barth Feldman is getting blowback. Set partly in Seoul, South Korea, the musical is a rom-com about two outdated humanoid robots. Darren Criss earned a Tony for his performance and made history as the first Asian American to win Best Leading Actor in a Musical. But Andrew Barth Feldman is white, a casting departure, because the musical began as a Korean language production in Seoul. From there, it was staged in China and Japan, and the original Broadway cast is comprised nearly entirely of actors from Asian backgrounds. So, of course, the expectation was that as Darren Criss rotated out of the role, that he originated on Broadway and helped to establish the whole feel of the show. There were many within the community, Asian and otherwise, who expected to see another person of Asian descent step into the role. Then it became complicated when the creators of the musical stepped forward and said, well, actually, this is about robots who are created by a global company, so this doesn't have to be race-specific. They just ask that this be a story that's always set in South Korea and that it has that universality. But that is not what the Broadway community wanted to hear, especially in a year in which we saw a lot of Asian American representation on Broadway, and Darren Criss, as we mentioned, was the first Asian American to win the Tony. So it becomes complicated.
Very tricky situation here. Very tricky situation. And on the one hand, I think, to your point, Jared, the producers of this show kind of came out and, I think in fairness to them, they said, we're sort of grappling to put into words what we're saying. Obviously, there's been an outcry. They sort of said, we feel like we need to say something. So these are essentially incomplete thoughts. They tried, I think they're trying it seems like in good faith to say, here was our reasoning here. On the one hand, you can sort of see some of it. On the other hand, you can absolutely understand why people are really upset about this, especially because, I think the simple fact at the end of the day is that, right now, despite advances, I think Broadway, overwhelmingly, there is a lack of opportunity for non-white actors across the board. And this is one area where it feels like it's a big production that has been very successful, and it feels like a punch in the gut, I think. And I understand why people feel that way.
Yeah, and I think one of the main issues here is that once this play came out, everyone was lauding how great it was, that they're providing opportunities for AAPI performers because there hasn't been that on Broadway. And here's this opportunity. And so you just make this assumption that that's what it is. So that's how they started, right? It's not sort of how Hamilton started. It's sort of like so I think putting that out there first and getting all those accolades for that, and then all of a sudden saying, but it doesn't really matter. And so I think that's really what the friction is. Had they started a little bit differently and said this was about robots and we really want this to be much more of a free from identity constraints, it would have been different. But I think the way it rolled out was problematic. I do think that, again, you're right, we're in a political climate that is not necessarily supportive of BIPOC anything or DEI anything, but I also think it's hard for the lead actress whose partner is.
Well, we haven't mentioned that.
Yes,
so
this is her partner, and she even says,
the white guy, Andrew Barth Feldman, who's stepping in,
is her actual real life partner. So she's also in this balance space where she is really excited to have him be part of it, but then she understands her community.
And there's the money piece of it, right? So
yes.
he who's coming in, right? He's an up and coming actor. He's got a huge following on Instagram, and as we know, these even successful Broadway shows at any minute,
tons of
money.
It
could be over.
Yes, and it's expensive.
Yeah,
I mean it's just a gut punch because also I think it's either 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 8 of the cast members of this show are of Asian descent, and nobody really has weighed in to say if this was really intentional. I don't know how this show is built, and I don't know if it has lineage going back to some of those earlier iterations off Broadway or in Asia. But I think that people thought, well, if you went this far, this would be continued. And for a lot of the community now, they're feeling that this is a rollback. Again, especially in a year where this was a tremendous year when you had Asian Americans winning at the Tonys. And if you're talking about race, you could argue that Asian Americans have the least amount of representation.
Right. And
in
it really
theater.
feels like step backwards for them. And so I think that you're right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. I mean, he's slotted to be in for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it is the next 9 weeks. But it is, I mean, there's this balance between we need to get butts in seats and we need to make sure that we're being relevant and we need to make sure, but there's also understanding, you know, the creation of this piece, and like I said before, how it was marketed.
Yeah, and I think some of it's in the timing, right? You like the idea that you want this to grow into the kind of production that can be produced anywhere with any kind of cast is one thing, but you're not there yet. This
Right.
is still, it's kind of like early days, so to speak, and it's on Broadway, which is the high-profile place. So it's a little bit where and when.
Yeah.
Well, we all know this music, so we're on to A Nation of Immigrants. It's been 10 years since Hamilton bounded onto Broadway, an instant smash success, not to mention a groundbreaking one for telling the story of our founding fathers through hip-hop and multicultural casting, which is very significant. This is opposite of what we were just talking about, because this was very much by design, so it would be glaring if it was a white actor stepping into one of these roles. But this is, we were just talking about this a little bit before, that this is mind-blowing to me because on the one hand it feels like Hamilton just got going in the last couple of years, but on the other hand it also feels like it has always been part of the American theater canon, and I think that speaks to how quickly it took hold and how quickly people understood that there was a very different way that stories could be told, both about American history, but how stories could be told on stage, because again, much has been made of the fact that this was a more than 1,000-page book by Ron Chernow that became this unbelievably epic musical, hip-hop musical about our founding fathers.
And I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen.
Nobody saw it coming.
Because if we did, we would have invested in because about $1 billion in global sales at least.
You know, I mean, I think, you know, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he can be somewhat of a controversial figure, but I do think that he was brilliant in doing this and sort of like helping, when we talk about like reframing history, right, and giving people opportunities to see themselves in the creation of American history. And so, you know, it's got legacy, it's got immigration, it's about a revolution. So, you know, I think this, it's still relevant today because it does sort of redefine modern American theater, right? There's so many things that have happened after Hamilton. Like we look at Into the Heights and we look at Oklahoma, who had a black lead, right? It's that, you know, I'm not sure that all those things and the things that are happening in American theater today would happen if Hamilton hadn't existed and been the success that it is.
And before we get to you, Edgar, here's Lin-Manuel Miranda speaking with NPR's Steve Inskeep about this 10th anniversary moment.
I always laugh a little bit when I read really smart think pieces about how Hamilton is so dated now. It's an Obama-era musical. And I always kind of like, listen, the show Hamilton didn't change because you lost hope in our country. All musicals sort of live differently in different eras. And I think different things hit at different moments.
What do you think is hitting now?
Immigrants, We Get the Job Done is getting lusty cheers in a time when immigrants, documented and undocumented, are under direct attack.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's right on. There's a few things on that. One, on the one hand, there are pieces of this musical that are like of its time, but I think this is truly, this is definitely going to have staying power. This does what all great works of art do, which is there is something universal in this, which is always going to read. I think every generation is going to find something in this. And one of the things I think is interesting about it at 10 years is kind of an interesting time, because to your point, Lisa, I think there were some immediate changes in Broadway and in theater in the aftermath of this, but I think its real legacy, like the real legacy of this, is yet to come. If you were 13 or 14 when this came out, you're like 23 or 24 now. And I think a lot of times, truly great works, it's the next generation who come up with that as inspiration and then take it in whatever direction they're going to take it. That's what really establishes the truly great works that have long legacy. I think this is going to be one of them, but I think over the next 10 years is when we're really going to see the fruits of what this planted 10 years ago.
A lot of people were annoyed by Stephen Sondheim before they came to love him.
Right, no, exactly. And I do think it's really interesting because, you know, Hamilton is still being taught in schools, right? It's still a history lesson, right? It's still a way to use arts and culture to help tell history that's being erased everywhere. And I think you're right. I think it is generational. I think it spreads across all generations, and it gives different voices to.
But also to remember just how groundbreaking it was when it came out. It was shocking and
brought people to the theater who had never been to the theater before.
Where Hamilton methodically digested history, South Park is processing events in real time, and now the government is processing right back. The Department of Homeland Security is using an image from South Park to recruit ICE agents. Not surprisingly, South Park is hitting back, further skewering the Trump administration. So again, if you're watching on our GBH News YouTube stream or here at the library, after the very incendiary premiere of South Park, which skewered President Trump and his manhood, the Department of Homeland Security quickly posted this image taken from South Park, imploring people to sign up to join ICE. And so we have seen a few episodes of the latest season of South Park, and the latest episode attacks Kristi Noem for her disclosure that she had once shot her dog. In this episode, she's shooting a whole bunch of animals, and it just goes on from there, including the president in bed with Satan. Back to you, Lisa.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have to say that Matt Stone and Trey Parker are brilliant. Okay, I mean, even though their whole concept of South Park is very sort of like pushing a conservative agenda or whatever. So, but I think they have the ability to really take this satire and critique society and politics and media, and they do it to everybody, right? So, my question is how do they get away with it, right? How do they get away with it? It is on Comedy Central, that is owned now by Paramount, that is owned now by Skydance, which is an incredibly conservative media.
To remind people, Paramount, who just canceled Colbert.
Yes, canceled Colbert because they wanted Skydance to buy them. But yet you keep on South Park.
This is what I don't understand either.
Well, because there is apparently this satire and parody laws in the United States that basically says that you have a First Amendment right if you're using satire to talk about, it's not telling jokes where Colbert was telling jokes. So not only that, this show brings in more money than they even know what to do with. They just signed a 5-picture deal for $1.5 billion over the course of the next 5 years. They wanted 10 years and 2.5, but they settled for 5 years and 1.5. So, I mean, there's the answer. We talk about it too, like using AI, using digital. How are you helping to transform history or whatever? But it really, when it comes down to, is
I do think you hit on something, and I think it's an important strain in this, in that they are a little bit of an equal opportunity offender.
Yes,
they are. A perfect example in the recent episode, Cartman, right?
Yes.
He there's a great line where he mentions he's mad that NPR has been defunded because now he can't listen and poke fun at how inane it is, right?
Right.
So there's a double joke in there. And they're very good at walking that line.
That's funny, Cartman.
Yes. So I think there's that piece of it. The other thing with this story in particular, I think, which is important to remember, because anything taken out of context can be used however it wants to be used, but in particular, satire taken out of context can be very powerful to the other side. And that's what we see here, right? If you watch that episode of South Park, it is very clear that they are poking fun at, I don't know if it's poking fun, but they are not on board with what ICE is doing.
Right,
they are sending ICE up. But ICE is able to take a single image from that and put it on, and if you didn't watch that episode, but you kind of know that South Park's kind of cool, you could look at that image and be like, well, South Park, they're on board
because
with
that's their
what we're
demographic,
doing.
right? That's South Park's demographic. So it's like, oh, wait, South Park's on board with ICE, so I should probably join that. Yes, but I think that, yes, and then they fought back.
Anyway, the point is
not hard enough.
Context. Well, no, they did.
They said, wait, so now we're relevant?
Well, so what happened, right? Because when the episode skewering Donald Trump came out, the White House put out a statement and said that show's not relevant.
And
you
then
guys don't know anything. They went back and said, what, now we're relevant, but what was the hashtag? Eat a bag of something.
Yes.
So good on them.
Well, I think this is going to be incredible. When's the last time we were talking so much about a television show and what they're doing? And even though it's not necessarily real time, because it takes some time to create this animation, they are right on it.
Right.
And they have been masterful in provoking this. And it's also masterful, some of the responses. So J.D. Vance was depicted as this tiny little figure that was kicked to the curb by the president, and J.D. Vance tweeted back that essentially he'd made it. So everybody's trying to become the bigger person, like, I can own this, I can take I'm Teflon, I can handle this. We'll see how far it gets handled, because the president didn't take to it very well.
No, but the other thing is that Trey Parker and Matt Stone negotiated their broad creative freedoms, and they also have editorial control.
And so, on top of that, they know exactly who they are and what they're doing. They know what their product is, and this is going to be really interesting.
I mean, I think it's really interesting because they are going to have converts too. People are going to start watching this if this is the kind of content they're going to be putting out. So what do we have? We have this, and we have Saturday Night Live. Like, those are the things that are parroting and using satire to talk about current situations and political situations.
I'm just waiting for the Epstein episode of South Park.
Yeah.
Because
that's coming out. Look at that. Yeah,
that's going to be explosive. And again, they have a lot of people talking, and I would love to know what Colbert has to say about the fact that they get to exist within the Paramount family.
Well, because of the satire and parody laws.
Well,
and the money.
We also know how many laws are.
The Colbert Show was losing money. This is not losing money.
No.
All right, well, last month, the Smithsonian Institution scrubbed all mention of President Donald Trump's 2 impeachments from an exhibition on the American presidency at the National Museum of American History, right there on the Mall. So right now, visitors will come away thinking only 3 presidents, Johnson, Nixon, and Clinton, have been impeached. But news this week, the Smithsonian says it will restore the Trump mentions soon. So this happened last month, and word really got out this week because people started to make their way through. And the Smithsonian answered that by saying, well, we needed to reevaluate this gallery, and this didn't really hold up. And so they removed this mention, and they made it clear, you can believe them or you could not, that the president did not exert any pressure to remove mention of his impeachments, but they claim that they are coming back. And of course, this follows what we have been talking about, and that is the president and the White House trying to remake the board of the Smithsonian, but also the content of the Smithsonian.
Well, it's an attempt to rewrite history, right? And to make history be, all these positive things about you. The crazy thing is that you have that he has the ability to do that. And I don't know what really went on in the Smithsonian boardroom. Obviously, they're saying, the plaque was, covering up an artifact, and it didn't, the language wasn't up to what we needed it to be. Whatever they want to say, and they say it's going to come back. I don't know that it's going to come back.
Does it take too long to print?
I don't know, but it's just part of this whole effort around changing these American stories and taking these people out, like he did with the Harvey Milk story about taking that away from the Navy ship, the Republican support of defunding CPBS, the change in leadership of the Kennedy Center. So all of these things are sort of like setting up our change, about what people learn about history.
And not to mention all of the changes to all kinds of language and content on federal websites up and down the federal government. So, I think the thing here is... when you ask yourself, what's the point of a free press? In theory, a free press is the idea is when things like this happen, somebody's watching, and then they write about it, and then there has to be a response to it. And I think we've got to remember that as we see press freedoms being rolled back to a certain extent too, whether it's an organized press and it's a legacy institution or it's just regular people, all of us have some responsibility to keep our eyes on what's happening, because it is clear that there are powerful places that are trying to alter or change things, and you just got to be on the lookout for them. I mean, it's good that somebody caught this. It's good that somebody went back to the Smithsonian, and then when they did, Smithsonian says, okay, well, no, actually, maybe we're going to restore it. Like that feedback loop has to keep happening.
But the crazy thing about it is that they have to do this balance now. They're these institutions that are revered about history and telling the truth about history and transparency and having this transparency. And now it's sort of like the jobs report. Like, how are we going to know what's real and what isn't real? And how are people going to learn the true history of things if things keep getting erased and things keep getting changed?
Well, as Edgar says, people need to keep eyes on it. Well, coming up, only masterpieces in the building. Steve Martin is working with the Frick Collection in New York to entice visitors to its freshly renovated home on Fifth Avenue. That and more is next on the Culture Show. Stay with us.
Next time on The Pulse, for a lot of live music fans, it's always been the louder, the better.
My first concert was Black Sabbath. Nobody wore earplugs back then, and nobody ever thought about it. It just wasn't a thing.
But now more music fans want to protect their hearing. We'll talk about noise levels, hearing, and our health.
Tomorrow morning at 6, here on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Foundation for Chinese Performing Arts, presenting a series of concerts at NEC by distinguished musicians of varied generations through August 23rd. Details at ChinesePerformingArts.net. And Furniture Consignment Gallery in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. Open during the mass sales tax holiday weekend, August 9th and 10th. Purchase reservations are available in-store or by phone through August 8th. FurnitureConsignment.com. And Comcast, offering Xfinity with internet and mobile plans to help stay connected at home and on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet requires Xfinity Mobile. Actual speeds vary.
For the stories that take you deeper and the conversations that give you full context, subscribe to the GBH News YouTube channel. Just search for GBH News. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. I'm joined by co-hosts Edgar B. Herwick III and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. We're going over the latest headlines, including The Great Gatsby. With the classic turning 100 this year, fans are once again poring over the novel, including its mysterious cover, trying to decode what it all means. If you're watching on our GBH News YouTube stream, we have an image of the cover. If you're here at the library, you'll see it in a moment on our monitors. We're talking about the iconic blue cover featuring a woman's eyes hovering over a nighttime cityscape. And it can be decoded in any number of ways. It looks like she may be crying, but that could also be a reference to the lights at the docks of the Buchanans.
Right.
And what we
Like
are
that green
learning,
marker.
as people are looking back at the archives, is that F. Scott Fitzgerald was actually inspired by this cover because it was made before the manuscript was finished. And so as he began to look at this, this was painted by a Spanish artist. His name is Francis Cugat, who had worked in Hollywood design. This was his one and only book cover, but it seems that F. Scott Fitzgerald really was motivated by the representation he saw here.
It's a great cover. I mean,
that goes without saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great cover.
Which I never realized, by the way. I didn't know that didn't come later.
Same with me. So that I didn't realize that was the original cover
Yeah.
for the Dust Jacket 100 years ago. So I mean, that's kind of amazing. I mean, yes, it's an incredible cover, an incredible work of art. I feel like, this is kudos to my high school English teacher,
Yes.
Miss Wolfsis. We spent at least one class talking about this cover itself as part of the novel and the eyes, and are they reflective of the Dr. Eckelberg eyes, and is the green light a tear, or is it the light on the dock? All of that, it's all kind of there in it. I mean, it's a great cover, and it's a great sort of piece of the puzzle.
No, I mean, I think it's true. And it's like sort of, you can tell that he's a movie poster guy, right? When you think about it, when you look at it, that's a beautiful movie poster. It says, it's sort of like, a trailer for a movie. It sort of like tells you so much in that, just like looking at that, even before you turn the page. It's, there's romance, there's mystery, there's the bright lights of the city, and then when you dig deep into, obviously, the novel, it all comes to life, right?
Well, that's what's so interesting. What do those eyes see? What do those
and
lights
who are
really
they?
represent? What's next to those lights, what you don't see at first, which is a city kind of in ruin.
Yeah.
It's really a masterful representation.
And the idea that it's from such a distance, which I think is a big part of it, right? The illusory nature, it's almost like a mirage, which is kind of one of the major themes of the book. The idea that even rich, wealthy American dream, all of it's a little bit of a mirage. And it's rendered in such a way that you can imagine you've had about 4 martinis before you looked up there, and everything was everything was a little bit fuzzy, which is also very much on brand for the book.
I love the idea that this artist first, like his first rendition of it was very gray and chalky because he was going on the first title of the book, which was Ash Heaps. Like,
among ash heaps of the millionaires. Yeah.
And it's so relevant. It's still so relevant today. But I mean, I love what Hemingway said. Scott brought the book over. I love this, Hemingway and Scott, right? Scott brought the book over. It had garnished.
It's like Bowen and Baranski.
Yeah. Had a dust jacket, and I remember being embarrassed by the violence and bad taste and slippery look of it, he said. This is what he said to F. Scott. And that's why I think it's really interesting in terms of movie posters, because it gives that slickness of that movie poster.
And Fitzgerald also F. Scott Fitzgerald did not want that given away to any other book while he was taking his time finishing it. Well, from the power of F. Scott Fitzgerald's moneyed elite to people power, the National Gallery in London is implementing a panel of citizens to advise the museum on its policy and direction. I think this is really interesting. It's also not completely new, because the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston did this a few years ago when there was a great controversy around the Guston exhibition and Guston's representation of Ku Klux Klan members.
Yep.
It was his way of dealing a lot of trauma he saw as a young Jewish man in the early part of the 20th century. People didn't necessarily understand that, and so there needed to be a dialogue about that representation, and that kind of gave birth to the MFA's Table of Voices, where for each exhibition they bring in a group of people. And what they'll be doing in London is canvassing about 15,000 people, winnowing it down to 20 who will serve as a 5-year term to weigh in on issues for the museum and policy and the future of the museum.
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing, right, about engagement and making sure that you are providing an opportunity in these spaces for everybody, and that you have these folks that are going to be there. 5 years is a great amount of time, right? 5 years is perfect. So, I mean, I think that it's empowering visitors. It's giving people a voice. It's giving people, I mean, they say that they're not going to actually have a direct impact on the selection of artworks and exhibitions, but they're going to be responsible for recommendations in the gallery and the priorities and the public value.
Yeah, listen, this is a great idea. This is a good step. And then I got to be honest, I'm a little skeptical about like how it's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is to say, I think this panel will be formed, but there are advisory panels up and down, left and right on all kinds of things, and people put their time and effort into it, and then a lot of times a business or organization kind of just does what they're going to do anyway. So for me, I think it's awesome that this is being created. I like the process by which they're doing it. It sounds like there's thought in that. Like you said, there's a lottery, and then they'll winnow it down from the lottery. I think that's great. The question here is, what kind of impact is the things that this panel ends up recommending? Is there really going to be an impact? That's the thing we'll have to watch over time.
And I think the ICA does it as well. When they bring in exhibits and they want to make sure that they're connected with the community, they bring in community folks to have those conversations.
Which is very important, because one thing I say about some people, sometimes I observe this is a person who hasn't touched, or this is an organization who hasn't touched the ground in a long time, meaning they're not really familiar with how the world is working at this point.
Right.
And so it is key for them, if they're going to be a democratic arts institution and be telling stories that reflect our society, you need to know who the society is, and this is a great way of doing it. It's not to say they're going to be curators, and that probably shouldn't be their role, because they didn't have the studies, but they can certainly have an impact and have a great influence and shape the storytelling.
Absolutely.
Well, if speaking of accessibility, if you think Steve Martin doesn't give a frick about art, he really does. He's a huge patron of the arts, not to mention a collector, and now the Frick Collection in New York is putting his passion to use, with Martin serving as an ambassador in a new video welcoming visitors back to the museum, which recently reopened on Fifth Avenue after a 5-year, $220 million renovation. We'll just hear a little bit of Steve Martin's tour of the Frick.
The Frick tells many stories at once. It's an accumulation of masterpieces, linked by taste and quality, displayed in a jewel box building and open to a broad and adoring public, who bring with them connections and interpretations of their own. All of which is why the Frick has inspired generations of artists, writers, travelers,
we'll
and
fade
New
this
Yorkers
down
alike.
now.
Yeah.
And
But
hey,
Steve Martin
even
is a
comedians.
huge collector of
Huge.
paintings. Speaking of the MFA, he was the curator behind a collection of a Canadian artist a number of years ago. And it's just really lovely to see somebody who's so passionate. This is not a gimmick. This is not him being funny. This is him having a really true appreciation for art at the Frick Collection in New York.
I think it's brilliant. I think that he is actually not a spokesperson for the Frick. He is actually there co-creating a major show. And it's really, they're using, he's such a big New York person, right?
Yeah.
He's such a beloved figure.
And he's trying to take hold of the culture show, too.
Oh my goodness gracious. But I mean, I do think, again, how are we getting people into museums? How are we engaging people to make people feel comfortable? How are we opening up the door so it's not like a dusty, old, historic place, but yet it's somewhere for everyone? And I think it's using Steve Martin to do something like this is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything about this. Now, I happen to love Steve Martin, so I'm kind of in on this. And I also I love like really fancy old houses, which is essentially what the Frick is, right? So
apparently so does Jared.
Yeah,
he went.
Yeah.
So,
where was I?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
Newport,
right.
Gilded. Okay.
It
anyway.
is in the influencer age. I mean, I like this idea that he's a member of this place. He goes to this place and he's doing a thing in support of it. I think it's awesome. I also think it's interesting. I mean, just kind of in the context of just talking about The Great Gatsby, it is interesting that Steve Martin has made himself into who he is, right? Because Great Gatsby is about, like, can we remake ourselves in America? Can you create who you are? I mean, he's a guy from Waco, Texas,
right?
You know, who has become synonymous. He's become like this erudite New Yorker, and I think that's who he is.
Right.
And it's just interesting that he has kind of become who he is.
And we've
Because
also
this
talked
is the power of art.
Yes.
This is what I love to talk about. You don't have to have grown up and
that's what he
studied
says,
it formally.
and that's what he says. Just come in, see what makes what you like. And so, I mean, I just want to say one other thing. So there's the Fresh Guide to Florence was done by Fab Five Freddy. If he was looking at Italian Renaissance through the eyes of hip hop, it's another thing. It's like, how do we open up these spaces for people who wouldn't normally be there?
And one thing I love in the video, he says it's away from all the ugliness of the world. It's a great moment to visit this museum, or any museum for that matter. Well, this means it's time for our lightning round. These are the stories that caught our attention this week. Lisa, what's yours?
Okay, so if you've ever seen The Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach's drama starring Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, it is a painful look at marriage, but there's a scene in there.
A Noah Baumbach movie has a painful look at marriage?
I know, isn't that
really?
strange?
That is strange.
Like, wow. Anyway, there's a scene in there where they are screaming and yelling at each other, like to the top of their lungs, and now apparently there's a rancher who's using that. The Department of Agriculture is using it to respond to wolves that are going in and killing their cattle. So they're
playing the audio?
They're playing the audio. They have it on drone. They have it on big speakers, and so to keep the wolves out of the dens and keep the wolves away from the sheep. I don't know how the sheep and the goats feel about it, but it is saving their lives. So look, art is saving lives.
Art is saving lives.
It's saving animal lives. And you know how I love a good animal story.
You do love a good animal story. That is true.
So rather than hire people just go out and fight in a field, poor who is Adam Driver?
Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson go rent Marriage Story.
All right, here's a question:
Maybe
are
it
they
works
being
on
paid
rats
residuals
here.
for this?
I don't. I don't. Oh.
Do they have the rights to actually be playing it like that?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't know.
Maybe
I guess
doing
the
it
wolves aren't
exactly.
paying
The
customers,
wolves
so probably not.
No,
they have the right to know that animals are not being
harmed
yes.
by any of this.
All right,
yes.
Edgar, what's yours?
So a couple months ago, the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art got this historic gift, more than 500 historic guitars, which on the face of it is really cool. I mean, the Leo Fender guitars that belong to Mississippi John Hurt, but there is one controversial guitar. It's known as the Keith Burst guitar, because what we know of this guitar is it once belonged to Keith Richards.
Ooh.
Then it becomes kind of question mark after that. So according to one of the eventual members of the Rolling Stones, Mick Taylor, he says that he bought the guitar from Keith, and then it was stolen, and he hasn't seen it for years until, it has now popped up in this exhibition. So he is trying to get this guitar back. But he also, sort of claims it was stolen in 1971 from this chateau in France where the Rolling Stones were making Exile on Main Street. And if anybody knows about the making of that, none of them were sober for a minute of that.
So they have no idea.
I think
So
there's a giant
probably didn't
question
even know it
about
was
whether or
missing
not
until
he's
now.
misremembering this. Yeah, a lot of controversy around this, and it's a to go down on the internet. For years and years, people have been trying to sleuth out where this guitar is. It probably was not stolen. It is the guitar, but he probably gave it away at some point. Seems to be what most people think.
So my question is, did he go to the museum and saw it there, or did he
saw
hear
that
about
it was? He heard about it being part of the exhibition, and his team is trying to get it back. Now, the Metropolitan Museum of Art is saying, no. We have strong provenance on this. This is staying here. So.
This needs some forensic investigating.
Yes.
If this was a heavy drug period, there were probably substances of any manner
exactly.
all over
So
this.
if if
no
it rains this
idea.
weekend
Was
and you
it
got
even
some
a
spare
guitar?
time,
Maybe it was a flute. I don't remember.
Mine is in your world, actually, Lisa. This is Dick's Sporting Goods.
Oh.
We all
Right
know
here?
the store.
Yeah.
This is the time of year where everybody's buying their sports for their kids for the fall
Buying their
athletic
Crocs.
season. Which you're also going to be supplying a new production house, because it turns out that Dick's Sporting Goods is launching their own in-house entertainment studio. I didn't realize, but they've actually been producing videos to the extent that they're more than just videos. They're short documentaries and short series and films. They have won 2 Emmys now, and they have decided that rather than outsource this, they will just create a production company within their own house, and it is called Cookie Jar and a Dream Studios, because back in 1948, Dick of Dick's Sporting Goods borrowed $300 from his grandmother's cookie jar at age 18, and that's how he built the sports empire that is now becoming a media empire.
This is very interesting. Fidelity did this a number of years ago, where they used to outsource, and then they created their own studio in-house to do the work, because it's obviously less expensive to do that. So that's very interesting. I mean, you think about
this is my lightning round.
I know, but I'm just asking you. Just asking you this question because you see those Ralph Lauren ads. It's like this is what.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, and so you'll be able to see an upcoming production in August when they have a documentary on the Little League World Series from 2024.
Amazing.
So so they'll know that the next time you're shopping at Dick's Sporting Goods.
That's also something to watch in the next 5-10 years. I think you'll see more of that. That's a smart play.
All right. Well, this is all for this edition of The Culture Show. You can tune in Monday for comedian and writer Amber Ruffin, who has turned her attention to a new revival of the hit Broadway musical The Riz. The Riz?
The Riz? Well, everybody in The Wiz has The Riz.
Yes.
Has Riz.
That was good.
At any rate, it is Boston bound, so we will speak with her. Edgar, what's coming up on the Curiosity Desk?
Well, just head to YouTube, GBH News YouTube, and partake of all of our episodes on the YouTube channel. That's what I would say.
That's a great way to be. Thanks today to engineer Bill Piacciatelli, the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Berg, our engineers Dave Goodman, I should say, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Also thanks to the Lennox Hotel and the Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you to everyone who came down here to be with us at the library today. We love seeing you. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a Riz and art-filled weekend.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
Herman Bauman and Vladimir Zhambasov, the soloists there, joined by the Gewandhaus Orchestra with Beethoven Sextet for two horns and string quartet.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston, WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2